Chapter 164. Do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? Does it hurt? Do you feel dizzy? The woman chattered on endlessly with words of concern as she inspected Zhu Yao from head to toe. Wait a minute. Zhu Yao pressed down her hand. She faintly had a guess, and could not help but ask. Who are you? I'm your mother. Her tears flowed even more freely. She touched her face with one hand and cried until she was out of breath. You are my daughter, my precious daughter. Mother has waited for so many years, and you have finally woken up. What's your name? She asked, unwilling to give up. You've followed my surname since you were young. My name is Enrich, and yours is Enchanting. It really was that cannon fodder female supporting character who didn't even have a chance to appear. Flip's table. Why did this rebirth have its own plot? Zhu Yao instantly felt her head spinning, and she could not help but press on her head. This action frightened Enrich so much that she even forgot to shed tears. What's wrong? Does he have a headache? Come, don't move, let me help you take a look. As she spoke, she gathered a strand of divine sense and was about to enter her body. Zhu Yao suddenly had a strange feeling, as she dodged to the side. I'm fine. Looking at her disappointed face, she suddenly felt a little nervous. She had never encountered such a situation with a plot. Moreover, according to the plot she had received before, this Enrich was not a simple character. It would be a matter of minutes for her to see through her, so she might as well confess herself. Listen to me, I'm actually not your daughter. Enrich was stunned and looked at her blankly. Zhu Yao might as well spill the beans. I don't know you at all. I was here when I woke up. As for what happened before, I have no idea at all. Enrich did not reply. After staring at her for a while, the tears that had just stopped flowed out again. She murmured, My poor daughter. Don't misunderstand. Zhu Yao anxiously explained. I didn't do anything to your daughter, and I've never seen her before either. I just found her here the moment I woke up. So, please don't ever think that I'm the one who took over her body. I know, it's good that you know. Zhu Yao was startled, as she fiercely widened her eyes. You know. This wasn't logical, right? However, Enrich said with a pained expression, I know you won't recognize me now. But it doesn't matter, mother will wait. Was there something wrong with the way she expressed herself? It's not that I don't want to acknowledge you. I'm really not your daughter. Mother understands, mother understands. What do you know? Can you not look like you know everything? Enrich patted her head again. My poor daughter. I'm really not. He was turning himself in. Be serious. You've been lethargic since you were a child. I just fell asleep, so I can understand if I can't accept it. Enrich started to reveal the hidden plot. Regarding these matters, mother will slowly explain them to you in the future. Sleep. Zhu Yao was startled, as she caught onto the keyword. Enrich nodded. When I was pregnant with you, it just so happened that it was time for me to ascend. Mother did not know of your existence at that time, and only found out after ascending to the upper realm. However, due to the influence of the tribulation thunder, I could not detect your aura in the womb. I did not expect that you would be born safely, but you have been in a coma since you were born. Mother has been waiting for so many years. As she spoke, she couldn't help but cry again. So that was the case. It was no wonder she accepted the fact that she did not know her so calmly. However, after all, she wasn't Enchanting. Even if she had been in a coma the entire time, and had just woken up, it was impossible for her to be as natural as her, right? Zhu Yao felt that she had to explain this point. Unexpectedly, this newly appointed chief mother did not mind at all, and even said with a prideful look, as expected of the one and only divine fetus in the divine realm, "You're so smart the moment you wake up. She shouldn't be bothered about this problem, right?" Zhu Yao collapsed. Hence, she spent an entire hour to explain the fact that she was not her daughter from various perspectives of the world. However, no matter what she said, Yin Shi looked at her with a tearful smile from start to finish. Her face was as expected of my daughter. Even in a coma, she still knew so much about happiness. Zhu Yao suddenly felt a deep sense of helplessness, and decided to just self-destruct her avatar. "I'm Zhu Yao, not your daughter Enrich." Zhu Yao. Only then did this cheap mother's expression change a little. Her brows lightly furrowed, and she said with a worried look, "Xan, even if you don't like your current name, mother doesn't mind if you want to change it. But you can't change your surname as well." "Who's going to change their surname?" "You must know that the Yin family is a large cultivation family in the lower realm, and in the divine realm, the Yin family even controls a continent. If you change your surname to someone else, isn't that a huge disrespect to your ancestors?" "I'm not." Back then, mother had discussed with your father for a long time before deciding to let you take my surname. "I say, if you really want to take the surname Zhu, mother will think of a way to change it along with you. Is it really alright to be such a femme-con? Aren't you afraid that I'll grow crooked? But the name Yao is too unpleasant to hear. Why don't you change it? How about Zhu Xin? Also, Xan Zhu Yao took a deep breath, grabbed onto her hand, and completely gave up on resisting. "Mother, you're my biological mother. I'm Enrich. I admit it, alright." Yin Shi's eyes shone, as she hugged Zhu Yao, calling out her precious darling. Zhu Yao felt like crying. "Daddy and mommy of the modern era, I've let you down." Zhu Yao did not know just how powerful the character realm spirit had set up for her was. Even if she wanted to expose herself, she was still exposed by her daughter. She suddenly recalled the first time she crossed over, she had encountered the same situation as well. She was clearly wearing clothes, and before she came, she had never been there alone. However, after she crossed over, everyone had her memories that had been set up. No matter how she explained, no one believed her. Instead, they thought that there was something wrong with her brain. Zhu Yao was becoming more and more curious about Realm Spirit's identity. Just what kind of powerful ability did he have, to be able to change the memories of so many people at once? The current Enrich situation was similar as well, the only difference was, in the Zhu family village, she was a person who suddenly appeared, while Enrich was a character that had existed in the first place. But where did the original Enrich go? According to the description in the dream, she should not have woken up until her death. But even so, Enrich was after all a real person. Zhu Yao taking over her body like this, for some reason, she felt as though she was stealing someone else's chance of survival. Zhu Yao shook her head. She decided to find an opportunity to ask Realm Spirit about Enrich's whereabouts. Thinking back carefully about the bug this time, there was no doubt. A murder case caused by a corpse. All of it. It was all because of her space. Mo Xian killed Tao Manfeng, obtained the dimensional space, and then leveled up to take revenge on Fluorescent Wind sect. However, she couldn't figure out why the ancient divine beast, the phoenix, would burn the immortal world into a sea of fire. Realm Spirit said that the god race and the demon race would reappear in the three realms. The appearance of the divine phoenix was also very normal. If one were to say that Mo Xian was related to the matter of destroying the divine realm. Thus, he could only take revenge on Fluorescent Wind sect. When Mo Xian destroyed Fluorescent Wind sect, he killed all of the disciples with the surname Yin, and even destroyed a large half of Fluorescent Wind sect. Could it be that Fluorescent Wind sect had something that was especially important to the phoenixes of the god race? Was that why they were angered? What was it? What could make the god race care so much? Zhu Yao could not figure it out. It seemed like she could only slowly search for it in the future. What she needed to know now was how far the plot had progressed. Mother. Zhu Yao pulled on to Yin Shi, who was still perfectly expressing the importance of mother-daughter love. Other than mother, do I have any other relatives in Fluorescent Wind sect? Or fellow disciples? Especially a certain person with the surname Su. Of course you do. Seeing that she was interested, Yin Shi naturally told her everything she knew. The various hall masters of Fluorescent Wind sect are all people of the Yin family. Oh, you also have a senior martial brother called Su Nuyen. He's your father's personal succeeding disciple. Ah. Look, I forgot about this matter in my excitement. Yin Shi was startled, as she glanced at her own daughter a little guiltily. Your father betrothed you to him, and today is the day of the dual pair ceremony. Nuyen is still waiting in the front hall to pay his respects. What? Zhu Yao instantly leapt up from the bed. In reality, they had already progressed to the stage of a catfight. Could it be any more ridiculous? You had been unconscious earlier, so I can't marry him. Zhu Yao pulled Yin Shi and charged out. Let's hurry over. She hoped that she could still make it in time to reverse her fate as a cannon fodder female antagonist. She simply had to silently watch the male and female protagonists fight. As Yin Shi summoned her divine sword, she explained. I know you've just woken up, and are definitely not willing to accept such an arrangement. However, Nuyen is a good child. You will understand after interacting with him more. Good child. Zhu Yao powerlessly glanced at her. You good child, not long from now, you will bring your ex-husband back to annihilate your entire family. Mother, you said that I'm already awake. Since I'm awake, then I'll make my own decisions. She definitely could not marry Su Nuyen, no matter if it was Yin Xian or Zhu Yao. Yin Shi still wanted to persuade her. However, Zhu Yao interrupted her. You said that Su Nuyen is good, but your daughter has never seen him before, nor have I spoken a single word to him. When he doesn't understand anything, he could easily promise to marry me. Just like that, he can casually decide on a major matter like this. I really can't see what's so good about a person like him. Yin Shi was speechless. Indeed, the divine realm could not be compared to the mortal realm. Just the words of one's parents and a matchmaker could decide one's marriage. People who became deities possessed endless lifespans, but as companions, they were truly people who would accompany each other for eternity. Which pair would not be familiar with each other and acknowledge each other? Only then would they hold a ceremony for companionship. This was not simply due to caution towards cultivation, it was also due to respect towards one's partner. Someone like her own daughter, who had never even seen each other before, was a rarity in the divine realm. However, back then, her daughter had always been in a coma. After she took over as the sect master, she was busy with the affairs of the sect, so she could not always take care of her daughter. Occasionally, she would mention this matter to Nuyen, and that child revealed the intention of helping her take care of her. Hence, she had the thought of having the two of them engage in companionship. But now that her daughter had already woken up, she no longer needed anyone to take care of her. It was evidently inappropriate for the two of them to hold a ceremony for companionship. Hence, she no longer hesitated, and brought her daughter towards the Great Hall. Just as Zhu Yao arrived at the entrance of the Great Hall, she suddenly heard the sounds of a battle, and a woman's furious declaration. If you are heartless, then I will stop. Su Nuyen, will sever all ties with you from now on. Chapter 165. Zhu Yao raised her leg and wanted to enter to explain, however, she never expected that there would be such a tall doorsill at the entrance to the Great Hall. The moment she raised her leg, poo-poo. Thus, her long-awaited first dazzling entrance appeared, and she fell flat on her face, successfully attracting everyone's attention. Zhu Yao simply felt as though those fiery gazes were all focused on her body. The hall was instantly silent. This was definitely an accident. Zhu Yao awkwardly crawled up, faked a few coughs, and patted the dust on her body gracefully, as though the one who fell earlier wasn't her. Everyone, please forget about this imperfect beginning. Xan, As though she was purposely going against her, her cheap mother, who was 2 steps behind her, looked at her with a pained expression. How is it? Did it hurt? Child, why did you run so fast? You must have fallen, right? You acted so rashly the moment you woke up. Did it hurt? Zhu Yao simply felt as though a steel knife with the word "fell" written on it was stabbing straight into her heart. Mother, can we not talk about this? Can you not stab a knife into my wound? Enrich sized her up for a moment, and then felt relieved. Only then did she remember her objective this time. Looking into the hall, her expression instantly darkened, and the aura of a sect master was instantly released. What's going on? She looked straight at the center, at Immerse, who was holding onto a sword with a sorrowful expression, and her voice unconsciously carried a hint of pressure. No matter who it was, when they saw a sword-wielding person who looked like she was here to cause a ruckus, they would definitely feel a little unhappy. Furthermore, it was on her own daughter's big day. Under Enrich's pressure, Immerse's expression evidently paled a little. She still held on to the sword in her hand tightly, however, she did not look at the furious Enrich. Instead, she glared at Zhu Yao, who was standing at the side. You're Xian. Zhu Yao was startled, as she habitually raised her hands to greet her. Hi, hello. She never expected that after not seeing her for a while, Immerse was no longer that weak look she had when she first ascended to the higher realm. Most probably, her current state of mind was her true self. Zhu Yao had initially wanted to leave a good impression on her, however, she did not appreciate it in the slightest. The hatred in her eyes grew, as she held on to her sword and pointed it at her. Xian, for today's grudge, Immerse, will definitely make you pay in the future. What did she do? She hadn't even said a word. Immerse evidently did not have the intention to explain. After saying that, with a turn of her hand, she was about to fly off on her flying sword. He couldn't let her leave just like that. The next time he saw her, she would come for him. Zhu Yao grew anxious, and could not help but call out to the only person she knew in the hall, who was also the closest to her. Mushroom, stop her. Oh. In the blink of an eye, the white-clothed man at the side raised his hand, and conveniently pulled Immerse, who was already standing on the sword, down. Because he pulled her too hastily, that flying sword had already flown out, while the person on the sword fell onto the ground with a plop. 2 people consecutively fell down on the smooth floor of the hall. Everyone fell silent again. Especially the mushroom who made the move, his face was even more puzzled. He looked at the unfamiliar woman at the door, and then looked at his own hand. Did he know that person? Why did he listen to her just now? Immerse, who did not manage to leave, glared at Zhu Yao with fiery eyes. Most probably, she had really been provoked, as she cursed out. Slut. After being scolded for no reason, before Zhu Yao could even speak up, Enrich at the side could no longer endure it. Impudent. She no longer held back her pressure of a high rank, as it directly pressed towards Immerse. In an instant, she puked out a mouthful of fresh blood, and was once again pressed onto the ground. Is this how Advent Cloud Hall teaches its disciples? Enchanting turned to glare at the hall master who was leading the Advent Cloud Hall. That person's name was Yunhai, and he was Enchanting's master. Being questioned by Enchanting in such a manner, his expression instantly revealed a hint of awkwardness. It is this lowly one's fault for not teaching properly, and has caused Sect Master Yin to see a joke. This child shall be handed over to Sect Master to deal with. After saying that, he glared at Enchanting. Rascal, hurry and apologize to Sect Master and young Sect Master. I'm not wrong. Why must I apologize? Enchanting gritted her teeth as she raised her head. I say. Zhu Yao raised her hand. How can a slut who seduced my husband be worthy of me apologizing? Shut up. This time, Enchanting was truly enraged. She had cherished her daughter for so many years, and she couldn't even wait to dote on her. How could she tolerate an outsider scolding her as a slut? A mere profound deity disciple actually dares to spout such arrogant words. So what if I'm talking about her? Enchanting still gritted her teeth and said. What? Seeing that this matter has been exposed, you wish to silence me. Actually, fine. Since you insist on seeking death, then this lord shall grant your wish. Can you, if you want to kill me, then kill me. You're courting death. Stop. A bolt of heavenly lightning instantly pierced through the air. With a loud boom, it blasted a hole through the roof of the great hall. The white lightning instantly illuminated the interior of the great hall. Unable to find a chance to speak up, and seeing that the plot was developing closer and closer to the original plot, Zhu Yao had no choice but to rush out and shout, "Cut!" Out of reflex, she summoned the heavenly lightning which she was most proficient in. This time, not only Enchanting and Enchanting, even the people in the great hall were dumbfounded. One after another, they looked at Enchanting with dumbfounded expressions. It was actually a lightning-type mystic art. Very good. Everyone's attention was finally gathered onto her. Zhu Yao looked at her surroundings, took a deep breath, and said powerlessly. Can't we have a proper conversation? It was initially such a simple matter, yet, they just had to form a death grudge. Was there a need for this? Enchanting was shocked by the heavenly lightning, and only regained her senses after blanking for a moment. However, she still looked at Zhu Yao with a disdainful and resentful expression, and coldly snorted. I have nothing to say to you. You don't have anything to say, but I do. Zhu Yao glanced at her. You said that I seduced your husband. I wonder who your husband is. Enchanting coldly laughed. She glanced at the hall, evidently, she did not wish to answer her question. Zhu Yao, however, walked towards a man dressed in a bright red wedding robe, who had not spoken a single word the entire time. Chuckling, she loudly said. This fellow Daoist, nice to meet you. It's our first time meeting, I'm called Enchanting. I wonder how I should address fellow Daoist? Sun Nuyen was startled. Evidently, he did not expect that she would ask such a question. However, due to the current situation, he had no choice but to reply. Junior Marshal Sister Yin, this humble one is Sun Nuyen. When his words fell, the crowd all took in a deep breath. Not a single person would have thought that this would actually be the first time these two people who were going to hold the majority pair ceremony were actually meeting for the first time. That's impossible. Enchanting exclaimed out as well, her face was filled with disbelief. How can this be the first time you two are meeting? They were clearly the ones who betrayed her. I have never met him before, nor have I spoken a single word to him. Even the matter of the majority pair ceremony was decided by my parents. So, I have completely no relationship with him. Who knows how you two hooked up? She still did not believe it. No matter if you believe it or not, this is the truth. Ever since I was young, my body has been weak, and I have never met outsiders. Everyone in Fluorescent Wind sect knows about this. You will definitely find out if you ask around. Zhu Yao turned to look at Su Nuyen. Our great Fluorescent Wind sect has not fallen to the point of stealing someone else's husband. However, you caused a huge ruckus in my Fluorescent Wind sect today, and humiliated my sect's reputation. Indeed, I can't let this matter rest just like that. Since you said that you're his first wife, I naturally won't do something like breaking up a marriage. The two of you can leave together, and today's majority pair ceremony shall end here. How big of a deal is this? Let's all return to our own homes and find our own mothers. There's only one husband in your family. Mo Xianxian was startled, as though she did not expect that this matter would be resolved so easily from her mouth. Could it be that she was willing to hand over her newly wedded husband to someone else just like that? At this moment, she was starting to believe her words of them not knowing each other. Sect Master Yin, this matter. A great majority pair ceremony was cancelled just like that. The crowd who came to watch the ceremony were a little unable to react, as they looked towards Yin Shi one after another. What my daughter said is right. Yin Shi had this plan in the beginning, however, she was angered by Mo Xianxian, and did not have the chance to say it out. Back then, she was even worried about finding some sort of excuse, but with this woman's ruckus, she had instead given her a ready-made excuse. Since Su Nuyen already has a wife, then the majority pair ceremony shall be cancelled here. Hearing her say that, though the crowd was a little doubtful, they still accepted it. Zhu Yao heaved a sigh of relief as well. No matter what, she had to first eliminate the female lead's hatred. As long as she did not marry Su Nuyen, everything could still be salvaged. This cannot be done. Mistress, you cannot be deceived by evil people. Unexpectedly, the one who stood out this time was Su Nuyen, who had not spoken much. He glanced at Mo Xianxian on the ground, and coldly said, "This disciple does not know this Miss Mo, nor did he take her as his wife." Yo, was this the prelude to activating a hidden storyline? Husband. Mo Xianxian widened her eyes, as she looked at Su Nuyen with a face of disbelief. Mistress. Su Nuyen, however, did not even spare her a glance, as he turned towards Yin Shi and said, "You know this disciple's personality the best. If he already has a wife, why would he hide it from you? Someone must be intentionally causing trouble." This. Yin Shi was a little hesitant, as she looked suspiciously at Mo Xianxian. "Miss Mo." Su Nuyen turned around, and said with a righteous look, "I don't know when this Su has offended you, for you to put up such a show on my wedding day. I have never seen you before, so how can I take you as my wife?" Mo Xianxian simply could not believe that such heartless words would actually come out from the mouth of the person she had always been thinking about. "Su Nuyen, ever since we entered the Azov stage in the lower realm, we have become husband and wife. With thousands of years of feelings between us, how can you treat me like this? Ridiculous." Su Nuyen fiercely flung his sleeves, looking as though he had been fooled. "Ever since I was young, I have been infatuated with cultivation, and I did not dare to slack off in the slightest. In between, I have never once had the thought of engaging in association cultivation with anyone. So how can I possibly have a wife? You." Mo Xianxian simply felt as though a cold wind was ruthlessly pouring into her heart. "Are you really that heartless?" Su Nuyen, however, looked at her with an even colder gaze. "Miss, please conduct yourself with dignity." Mo Xianxian simply felt her blood churning, as she puked out a mouthful of blood. In an instant, she felt that her persistence for so many years was just a joke. "All right, Su Nuyen. Even though that's the case, the feelings between you and I, Mo Xianxian, shall be severed from here on out." This was the second time she said these words today. If the first time was because she felt betrayed when she found out her husband had married someone else, then this time, it was because she was heartless towards him, and her heart was completely cold. However, the more Xu Yao looked at it, the more she felt that there was a problem with this. Whether Su Nuyen was Imo Xianxian's husband or not, she was the clearest. Initially, in her precognitive dreams, he had always been deeply devoted to Imo Xianxian. Hence, she had thought that as long as the two of them had made things clear, and allowed the two lovers to be reunited, then the things that happened later on would not have happened. However, Su Nuyen had suddenly turned hostile. Could it be that there were some hidden reasons behind this? Master's wife, this person has ruined this disciple's reputation, and has even offended you and Junior Marshall's sister with his words. With how arrogant and impudent he is, we definitely cannot let him off just like that. Su Nuyen's expression sank, as he said with a righteous look. Mo Xianxian, however, once again summoned back her own flying sword. Cut the crap. In the past, I had eyes but failed to see. Today, I will definitely seek justice for myself. Su Nuyen's expression sank as well. Summoning his weapon, a cold glint flashed in his eyes. If I don't teach you a lesson today, wouldn't others laugh at my fluorescent wind sect for not having anyone capable? Just as the two of them, who were originally husband and wife, were about to fight on the spot, Mo Xianxian had already brandished her sword and slashed towards Su Nuyen. Just what the hell was this? Stop! Xu Yao loudly shouted. Why are you randomly fighting again? Can't you just speak properly? Junior Marshall's sister. Su Nuyen said with a worried look. You have never left Fluorescent Wind sect, so you don't know the viciousness of the hearts of people in this world. This woman intentionally chose to cause trouble today. It can be seen that she harbors ulterior motives. Su Nuyen, you're the one who's unfaithful and heartless, yet, you're saying that someone harbors ulterior motives. If we're talking about ulterior motives, the one with the most ulterior motives is you. Seeing that the two of them were about to fight again, Xu Yao did not even think, and immediately summoned heavenly lightning bolts. Following a few rumbling sounds, the roof, which had only a hole in it earlier, was now completely gone. The entire house was filled with purple-colored lightning sparks. This time, not only did it frighten the two people who were fighting, even the people in the hall were looking at her with a different gaze. This is a lightning formation. She actually knows a lightning formation. A mystic art like this can only be, how is that possible? Doesn't that place never accept disciples from the divine realm? Just who in the world is she? Xu Yao's expression stiffened. Earlier, she had merely subconsciously slashed a few more times. Her master didn't seem to have mentioned that this was an especially powerful mystic art, right? Junior Marshall's sister Yin, why do you know the mystic arts of Lightning Divine Hole? Su Nuyen could not help but speak up as well. That's a problem. Why did the topic change so quickly? Weren't the male and female leads going to continue fighting? Actually, just as Xu Yao was troubled over how she was going to explain it, as though in response to her, the sky suddenly began to emit crackling sounds of thunder, each one louder than the previous one. The entire sky had darkened. Heavy tribulation clouds filled the entire sky. Heavy lightning pressure seemed to be coming from afar, and it was so heavy that it was hard for people to breathe. Everyone's expressions changed. They could no longer be bothered to ask her about her mystic art, as they went out one after another to look at the sky. Within the layers of clouds, lightning sparks were constantly flashing. The tumbling tribulation clouds seemed to have covered a large half of the skies of the divine realm. That pressure was clearly hundreds of kilometers away, yet, it was still shockingly dense, as though the lightning sparks hidden within the tribulation clouds would sweep across the entire continent in the next moment. Someone's facing a tribulation. Someone exclaimed. Chapter 166. Zhu Yao had never seen a tribulation lightning bolt with such a vast momentum. Not only had the entire sky darkened, even the lightning sparks that were inadvertently emitted from the tribulation clouds contained lightning pressure similar to the lightning tribulation of ascension. The tribulation clouds brewed for about 7 minutes, and finally welcomed the first bolt of tribulation lightning. The moment the lightning sparks appeared, a large expanse of white light instantly engulfed a large half of the sky. That bolt. No, it could no longer be called a bolt, it could be counted as a large expanse of lightning sparks. It struck straight down, and in an instant, the initially pitch-black world instantly turned as bright as day. It was so blinding that one could not even open their eyes. Not to mention, the might of the heavenly Tao contained within the tribulation lightning was enough to cause one's entire body to tremble. The crowd of deities had already begun to meditate on the ground, comprehending the heavenly Tao within. The lightning sparks struck one after another. Although Zhu Yao had always been proficient in lightning-type arts, this was still the first time she had seen heavenly lightning of such might. If not for the fact that tribulation lightning only struck the person facing it, under such a powerful lightning pressure, who knew how the divine realm would have been struck? She secretly rejoiced. Fortunately, she was far away, which allowed her to safely observe the wonders of nature. However, the lightning bolts were a little too thick, and each one seemed to be thicker than the previous one. Earlier, they were still the size of buckets, but now, they seemed to be as tall as towers. Why did she feel that the lightning bolts were getting closer? Ho ho! This must be her imagination, my ass. That lightning tribulation was really getting closer and closer. What's with this lightning pressure? Why is it coming here? The crowd of deities realized something was amiss as well. Not good, the tribulation lightning is about to strike. What should we do? Earlier, they were still 50 kilometers away, but now, they could already smell the burnt smell. The lightning sparks were getting closer as well. A bolt of tribulation lightning was about to strike the foot of fluorescent wind Sex Mountain, instantly roasting a large expanse of the forest below into scorched earth. Their entire field of vision was filled with that blinding white lightning sparks. Run! Zhu Yao shouted out. Only then did the crowd regain their senses. One after another, they flew on their swords and artifacts, flying in the opposite direction of the tribulation lightning. They were afraid that the next bolt of tribulation lightning would strike their heads. What a joke! With lightning pressure like this, even a late-stage heavy deity might not be able to block it. If they did not run, they would be waiting for death. Seemingly in the blink of an eye, the entire fluorescent wind sect had retreated cleanly. Except for Zhu Yao. Damn it, she had just woken up, and she didn't even have a flying sword with her. She couldn't fly at all. Cheap old lady, what happened to the pearl of the sect, my darling? Come back here. The pressure of the tribulation lightning once again increased, and a terrifying aura instantly engulfed the entire sky above fluorescent wind sect. The tribulation clouds roiled, and it seemed like the next bolt of tribulation lightning was about to strike down. Zhu Yao was anxiously pacing in circles. It can't be, right? Nobody told her that the avatar she was using this time only had an expiry date of a day. Suddenly, a white figure flew out from the scorched forest. Zhu Yao simply felt her waist tighten, and she was instantly pulled into a familiar embrace. Mixed within the ice-cold and chilly aura was a little burnt, and within the calm and refreshing aura, there was a little burnt as well. Barbecue! Pooh! Master! Zhu Yao seemed to be able to recognize the person in front of her at first glance. However, he was different from the stable and composed him in the past. The person in front of her was revealing a hint of fatigue, and even his hair was a little messy. He looked at her from head to toe and said tentatively, "You." The depths of Zhu Yao's heart skipped a beat out of reflex. She immediately covered the words he was about to say, and gritted her teeth as she struggled with the words he had yet to say. Yow! His tightly furrowed brows slowly relaxed, and in an instant, that heavy expression of his had retracted quite a bit. An impulse rose in the depths of his heart, as though he had to do something in order to suppress it. Hence, without any hesitation, he lowered his head, and pressed it against the too softness in front of his eyes. In an instant, the strange impulse in the depths of his heart dissipated by a large half. Before Zhu Yao could even be surprised that this 10,000-year otaku was finally enlightened, Yu Yan simply touched her lightly, and instructed with a stern expression. Stay a little further away from me, do not approach me by mistake. After saying that, he pushed with his hand, and Zhu Yao was instantly sent several dozen meters away by a light breeze. And the next bolt of heavenly lightning struck down in an instant as well, heading straight towards Yu Yan. So the person facing the tribulation was her master. Stay there, nothing will happen. Yu Yan instructed. Zhu Yao nodded. She had 120% confidence in her master. As expected of her master, he was already about to face the high deity's tribulation so quickly. Although he looked a little haggard, she believed that her master would be able to endure it. Earlier, the panic she felt because she did not have a flying mystic artifact to throw down, was instantly swept away. If her master said nothing would happen, then it must be, boom. A gigantic bolt of lightning struck down towards Yu Yan, and then, at the instant it landed on the ground, it made a turn, and struck straight onto Zhu Yao's head. She seemed to have heard the sound of trust shattering. Yu Yao. Yu Yan's figure flashed, and he shifted over. Zhu Yao, who had already been struck into charcoal, puffed out a mouthful of black smoke. Her dead fish eyes looked towards a certain master who had dropped the ball, and faintly threw out 2 words. Piece of paper. What happened to the promise that nothing would happen? Master, your trait of tricking your disciples has leveled up again, right? Yu Yan was a little confused as well. Although he had long known that his disciples' affinity with lightning spiritual energy had reached a heaven-defying level, he had never expected that she would even be able to lure his own tribulation lightning over as well. In the past, when she ascended, he had never seen her in such a situation either. Furthermore, other than her meridians being a little damaged and turning a little black, she was actually fine. Seeing that the next bolt of tribulation lightning was about to strike down, Yu Yan did not push his disciple to a safe place this time. In any case, it seemed like no place was safe for her. He could only hug his disciple tightly, set down a defensive mystic art, and use his own cultivation to block this bolt of heavenly lightning together. However, the heavenly lightning bolts struck faster and fiercer, as though they were trying to break through his defenses with all their might. Each bolt was heavier than the last, and even Yu Yan was having a hard time blocking them. Zhu Yao was a little anxious. This was the first time she saw her own master having a moment where he was powerless. Even his forehead was dripping with sweat. It could be seen just how strong the might of this tribulation lightning was. She did not dare to move. The first bolt was because she was lucky, but she did not dare to say that she could endure the second bolt of heavenly lightning. Currently, she could only hope that the lightning bolts would end soon. Fortunately, there were 81 bolts of tribulation lightning, and she silently counted them in her heart. 78, 79, 80, 81. Zhu Yao revealed a smile, her heart was filled with joy. As expected, perseverance was, 82, 83, 84, the hell, what happened to the promised victory? Why was there still more? 9 by 9 returned to 1, the 81 bolts of heavenly lightning had long finished striking. Why were there so many of them, and they were even striking faster and faster, getting more addicted the more they struck. Such a dense amount of tribulation lightning basically could not last for long. The figure beside her, who had been unmoving like a mountain the entire time, suddenly groaned. The defensive mystic art surrounding his body shook as well, as though it was about to collapse. Zhu Yao simply felt a throbbing pain in her heart. Master, before she could even voice out her worries, the defensive mystic art had already shattered under the excessive output of tribulation lightning bolts. Yu Yan instantly pressed her tightly into his embrace, and the next bolt of heavenly lightning was heading straight towards his back. Zhu Yao's eyes suddenly widened. Looking at the relentless tribulation lightning bolts in the sky, she was instantly filled with flames of fury, burning her to the point where she had forgotten everything else. She seemed to have used all of the strength in her body to loudly shout, "Enough!" As though it had heard her voice, the tribulation lightning bolts that were about to land on the two of them suddenly paused, and just like that, they suddenly stopped in midair, as though they were gigantic, irregular white light tubes hanging in the air. "Are you going to stop striking or not?" Zhu Yao was at the peak of her anger, and she no longer cared about the tribulation lightning bolts. Her mind was filled with the urge to vent her anger. "What kind of grudge do I have with you? Why are you striking like this? The 81 bolts of heavenly lightning have already finished striking, and you're still striking. Hack, 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 hack your sister." In an instant, the sky was filled with a deathly silence. Even the rumbling thunder from before had disappeared. Yu Yan. Zhu Yao. An instant later, the lightning bolts that had stopped in midair suddenly made a pshit sound. As though a switch had been suddenly pulled, they dissipated. "It can't be. It was really scolded back by her. Did she obtain some sort of new skill?" Immediately after, they heard a pshit sound as though something had been extinguished. Even the lightning threads that were constantly surging above the tribulation clouds had instantly disappeared as well, and not a single bolt of lightning could be seen anymore. Then, before the two of them could even react to it, voila, a shower of rain poured down from above. That rain came in a miraculous manner. Clearly, the tribulation clouds had covered the entire sky, yet, the rain only fell within a radius of 3 steps from where she and her master were standing. It was as though the rain was specifically aimed at them. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. "Master! It can't be crying, right?" Crying from her scolding, Yu Yan did not reply. However, the rain above them became even more ferocious. If it was just a heavy rain earlier, then the amount of rain right now could cause a flood. The raindrops were about to form a single line. It really was. Did tribulation clouds have such fragile hearts? Zhu Yao wiped off the rainwater on her face, and looked a little speechlessly at the tribulation clouds above her head. "Stop crying." When her words fell, not only did the rain not stop, it had instead increased in volume. That could no longer be called rain, it was simply pouring water. "I already said stop crying." The volume continued to increase. It seemed like, not long from now, fluorescent wind sect would be flooded with an ocean. "The hell, with my bad temper, I can't even persuade you, right? You were the one who struck the wrong number, and you're blaming me, right? Let's see what kind of sky-shattering lightning you're striking." Before she could even finish, the tribulation clouds in the sky began to disperse. In less than 15 minutes, the sky was already clear, and the tribulation lightning had completely dispersed. Other than the tribulation lightning which was currently raining, pouring water above their heads. Yu Yan had already silently raised up a barrier and used it as an umbrella. Zhu Yao raised her head and glanced at the extremely sad tribulation clouds. "Why are you still keeping it?" The moment her words fell, the pouring water paused for a moment, and immediately after, that sad tribulation cloud began to madly float towards the horizon, scattering the rainwater on the ground as it floated. Next to her ears, it was as though sounds of "woo" were resounding. Zhu Yao's expression darkened. "You must be a clown sent by the heavens, right?" Yu Yan casually cast a dirt removal art, cleaning up the two people who had already turned into scalded chickens. With a complicated expression, he looked at the person next to him. What should he do? His stupid disciple seemed to have a constitution that caused strange incidents. Chapter 167. After sending away that strange tribulation lightning bolt, Zhu Yao realized a very serious problem. Fluorescent Wind Sect was destroyed. What was originally a bustling immortal mountain paradise had now become a piece of scorched earth. Those magnificent buildings were either destroyed or damaged, and there was a burnt smell everywhere. I'm sorry, Mom, I'm a prodigal. More importantly, she suddenly recalled the ending of that dream. It seemed like it was also because Mo Xianxian and Su Nuyan had destroyed half of Fluorescent Wind Sect, which led to the Fire Phoenix burning the entire Divine Realm clean. However, right now, she had destroyed Fluorescent Wind Sect in advance. Then, she seemed to have messed things up. Would an apology work? Master. Zhu Yao weakly turned her head back. I have a serious question to ask you. Amen. Yu Yan turned around. If we were to fight with the Divine Beast Phoenix, what are our chances of winning? God race? Yu Yan frowned. Although he did not know why his stupid disciple would ask this, he still seriously and sternly replied. There's no chance of victory. Uncle Policeman, let me explain. Sect Master Enrich, who finally remembered what she had lost, flew back. She was still on her sword, but she was already pouncing towards Zhu Yao. At the moment when they were about to be pounced on, Yu Yan carried his disciple and dodged to the side, instantly appearing several dozen meters away. Yu Yan frowned. Where did this human trafficker who stole his disciple pop out from? Immediately, cold air emanated from his body. Who are you? Enrich was surprised that the other party's cultivation was so high, but she was also worried about her daughter's safety, so she said coldly, let her go. The cold aura emitting from Yu Yan's body grew even heavier. In the first place, he did not have a good temperament, and now, there was actually someone who wanted to snatch his disciple away from him. Raising his hand, he was about to summon the heavenly lightning. Wait! Zhu Yao leaped up in time, and hugged onto his hand that was currently forming an art. She was already unlucky enough today. I beg of you, please don't turn against each other again, all right? She is my mother. Yu Yan was startled, as he looked at her with a little astonishment. He then turned to look at Enrich, and then, turned to look at Zhu Yao. You have a mother. Hey. What do you mean by that look? Who doesn't have a mother? Come here quickly. Enrich called out worriedly, feeling even more worried. From the looks of it, the person who had just overcome the tribulation was this man. This person intentionally came to Fluorescent Wind Sect to undergo his tribulation, and attracted the tribulation lightning. I wonder what his intentions are. Mother, this is a misunderstanding. Zhu Yao's head was filled with black smoke. Looking at the situation earlier, the tribulation lightning bolt seemed, alright, they were definitely coming for her. Her master was clearly running behind the tribulation lightning bolts. Sighing, she struggled, signaling her master to let her go. Yu Yan frowned, and only after a while did he let go. Zhu Yao said as she walked. Mother, this is the master I just acknowledged. Just now. Yu Yan turned his head, the layer of ice on his face thickened a little. Zhu Yao trembled. Special circumstances, special treatment. Enrich pulled her daughter over and sized her up. Only then did she let down her guard a little. How is it? Are you hurt anywhere? Child, how could you be so muddle-headed? Such a powerful tribulation lightning, what are you still doing here? She had to be able to escape first, right? Why don't you give me a means of transportation? Even if you want to acknowledge me as your master, shouldn't you discuss it with your mother first? Eensher had already guessed that the master her daughter was talking about was definitely the one who protected her daughter from the tribulation lightning bolts, which was why she was unharmed. Hence, her anger earlier dissipated by a large half, and she bowed towards Yu Yen. Thank you, High Deity, for saving my daughter. Yu Yen did not reply either, and simply nodded. Seeing that she was still holding on to his disciple without letting go, his heart was instantly filled with displeasure. His hand was already faster than his brain, as he pulled his stupid disciple back to his side. Emin, this feels great. He then casually extended a strand of his divine sense, causing the imprint on his disciple's forehead to appear. Personal succeeding imprint. Eensher looked at the imprint that suddenly appeared on her daughter's forehead, and was startled. She did not have any objections to her daughter acknowledging a master. After all, her daughter had just woken up, and did not have any foundation. Having the high deity as her master would be another layer of protection. However, her daughter had never cultivated since young, so even if she was a divine fetus and possessed divine bones, she was still not sure of her aptitude. Taking her in as a personal succeeding imprint just like that, wasn't it a little too casual? I wonder which continent High Deity is from, and how should I address you? Yu Yen tightly gripped onto his stupid disciple's wrist. He remembered that his disciple's meridians were injured during the first bolt of tribulation lightning earlier. Though it was not very serious, he still transferred a strand of divine energy into her, hoping to repair her meridians. Hence, he answered a little absent-mindedly. Lightning Divine Hall, Yu Yen. What? This time, Eensher was really startled. Lightning Divine Hall. Is it that Lightning Divine Hall? This time, Yu Yen finally placed his line of sight on Eensher, and asked with the same cold and indifferent tone. There are 2 Lightning Divine Halls in this world. As he said that, he even turned to sweep a glance at Zhu Yao. It was one thing for his disciple to be stupid, but why was her mother as well? The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Hey. What's with that? If the upper beam is crooked, the lower beam will be crooked, look. So it's a high deity from Lightning Divine Hall. Eensher was definitely more shocked than happy. Her own daughter was actually able to enter Lightning Divine Hall, wasn't that a little too fantastical? Wasn't it said that the disciples of Lightning Divine Hall had already been chosen in the lower realm, and they had never accepted disciples in the divine realm? For a moment, she felt that destroying Fluorescent Wind sect was nothing much. Wasn't it just a few houses? The disciples under her sect were not injured either, and they could be rebuilt at any moment. For her daughter to be able to enter Lightning Divine Hall, that was a heavenly opportunity. I am indebted to High Deity for taking a fancy to my daughter. In the future, I hope that High Deity will put in more effort. Amen, indeed, it was quite a lot of effort. Zhu Yao. From now on, she is my personal succeeding disciple. Yu Yen said with a sunken voice. Since his disciple was going to say that she was newly accepted, he had no choice but to repeat the words he said when he first accepted her as his disciple. Entering my sect, you will inherit the Taoist name, Yu. From now on, you will be called Yu. Zhu Yao reacted quickly, as she covered his mouth with her hand. Gritting her teeth, she said. Yao. Yu Yen pulled down her hand, and his expression instantly sank. What's with that regretful little gaze of yours? As I thought, the name Desire was something you did on purpose, right? High Deity. Naturally, Eensher saw her own daughter's rude actions, and for a moment, she felt a little awkward. However, seeing that the person in question did not seem to have any objections, for a moment, she did not know what to say. Mother. Zhu Yao took a step back, tidied up her clothes, and only then did she recall the proper business. I have something very important to ask you. In Fluorescent Wind Sect, is there any special item? If her guess was accurate, Fluorescent Wind Sect definitely had something that the Phoenix clan needed. Special item. Ensure was startled, as she did not understand why her daughter would suddenly mention this. That's right, I'm talking about something like an item of the god race. Ensure shook her head. The god race has long gone extinct. Currently, in the three realms, there is no longer a shadow of the god race. Furthermore, the appearance of a divine object will naturally cause a phenomenon. If there is a divine object in our sect, how can it not be known by others? Why are you asking this? To save the world. Zhu Yao felt like crying. I naturally have my reasons. Mother, think about it again. Is there really nothing? Especially something related to phoenixes. Phoenixes. Ensure pondered for a moment before saying. The only thing in the sect that is related to phoenixes is our sect's imprint. She pulled up her sleeves and pointed at the patterns on it. My Fluorescent Wind sect's imprint is the phoenix totem. Zhu Yao pulled up her sleeves to take a look. As expected, a simplified phoenix pattern was embroidered on her clothes as well. Then just what was the Phoenix clan looking for? Zhu Yao was confused. On one hand, she had a huge pile of questions in her heart, while on the other hand, she was worried that the Phoenix clan would slaughter their way into the divine realm at any moment. The disciples who were scattered due to the tribulation lightning earlier had already flown back one after another. All of them were gathered at the ruins of the former Fluorescent Wind sect, which had already turned into a scorched land. Ensure had already begun to instruct the disciples to clean up the mess. This is the first time High Deity has paid a visit, but with the current situation. Fluorescent Wind sect's hospitality is lacking. I hope High Deity can forgive us. Ensure courteously said. It's fine. Yu Yan completely did not have the self-awareness that he was one of the culprits of this tragedy, as he calmly said. I will bring her back to Lightning Divine Hole. Ah. Ensure had yet to react. She did not have the intention to chase him away. However, Yu Yan had already turned to look at Zhu Yao, who was still thinking about something, and called out. Zhu Yao. Oh. Zhu Yao habitually reached out her hand. With a light tug, Yu Yan grabbed onto his disciple and flew up. Just as he was about to leave, a man dressed in a wedding robe flew over. Junior Marshal Sister Exian, Su Nguyen stopped in front of them with a worried look, and inspected her from head to toe. It's great that you're all right. I have been worried about you. Zhu Yao frowned, and in an instant, a strange feeling rose in the depths of her heart. This Su Nguyen was a little too passionate towards her, wasn't he? This seemed to be their second meeting, right? Su. Fellow deity. Since she had already entered Lightning Divine Hall, naturally, she could no longer call him Senior Marshal Brother. Junior Marshal Sister Exian, The smile on Su Nguyen's face stiffened, and his eyes sank a little as well. Glancing at Yu Yan next to her, his face instantly revealed a heartbroken expression. Regarding the matter earlier, Junior Marshal Sister doesn't believe Senior Marshal Brother. Ah. Zhu Yao was startled. What are you talking about? Su Nguyen's expression grew even more bitter, as he anxiously said. Junior Marshal Sister, listen to me. I and that person, get out of my way. Before he could even finish, he was coldly interrupted by Yu Yan. He really disliked the way this person looked at his disciple. Hence, as his words fell, a high deity's pressure pressed towards him. Su Nguyen's figure flashed, and he instantly fell off the divine sword. With a plop, he fell into the scorched ground below. Due to the difference in levels, he even sunk into the ground. Like a piece of clay that was pressed down by a seal, a perfect human shape was formed. Zhu Yao, Master, you've reached your menopause. Amen. Cold air filled the surroundings. It's nothing. Master, you're mighty and domineering. Throughout the ages, you will unite the pugilistic world. He's babbling nonsense again. Yu Yan did not stay any longer. As he flew in the direction of Lightning Divine Hall, he asked, "What's going on with the Phoenix clan?" Zhu Yao was just waiting for him to ask. Just as she was about to tell him about the bug this time, and have him analyze it for her, an immense pain suddenly came from her chest. It was as though her internal organs were being torn apart in a single direction, and the pain was unbearable. She puked out a large mouthful of blood. Yu Yao. Yu Yan's feet paused, as he was shocked by his disciple's sudden situation. The tearing sensation on Zhu Yao's body grew stronger, and her vision began to blur as well. And the direction of the tearing seemed to be, Master. Return. Return to tranquil. Wind set. Chapter 168. When Zhu Yao woke up, her eyes were still filled with darkness. The sound of howling winds could be heard from her surroundings, as though something was blowing onto her body. Every time it blew past, she would feel as though something cold was seeping into her body, and her body would turn colder. What was this place? Logically speaking, her master wouldn't have thrown her here alone, right? She tried to stand up, only to realize that she was basically unable to move. Her entire body seemed to have been bound by something, curling into a ball. The light was too dim, and she was completely unable to see her own situation. However, it was very clear that this was no longer her previous body. Could she have died again? Was this a new avatar? As expected, Enxian's avatar was a one-time use, right? But why didn't the resurrection dialogue box appear when she died this time? Did fellow student Realm Spirit finally get tired of playing? She tried calling out to Realm Spirit a few times, in order to understand the situation, but there was no response at all. Though, her eyes were getting more and more accustomed to this darkness, and she could faintly make out a few things. For example, the howling winds outside were formed by thick black smoke, and they even carried an uncomfortable aura. She had seen this smoke before, twice. Divilic energy. In her surroundings, there was actually divilic energy everywhere. Logically speaking, divilic energy was the purest energy of the devil race, just like how divine energy was to deities. Those who were not of the devil race were basically unable to endure divilic energy, and would instead be corroded into ashes. Why was it that other than feeling a little cold, she was completely fine? Zhu Yao stayed in this pitch-black place for a very long time. In the beginning, she was even worried that she would encounter a devil, but after 10 whole days had passed, other than the never-ending divilic energy, she did not see a single human figure. She could not help but begin to suspect if there were no living beings here at all. On the 11th day, she finally heard footsteps. Those footsteps were very light, but in this place where there were no other sounds other than the sound of the wind, they were especially clear. Zhu Yao's heart was filled with joy, and she rolled towards the direction of the sound. That's right, she couldn't walk, but she could roll. Needless to say, she rolled rather smoothly. Her entire journey was unobstructed, and she rolled at lightning speed. In the beginning, Zhu Yao was still a little glad that this self-taught, high-level rolling technique, but a moment later, she realized that she couldn't stop. The place she was at earlier seemed to be a downhill slope, so the moment she rolled even faster, and the more she rolled, she was basically unable to stop. She struggled a few times, but to no avail. She wasn't a ball, did she have to roll around so happily? A moment later, his entire body shook as if he had hit something. Finally, he stopped. A hoarse voice sounded in his ear. "Bastard! Who are you scolding?" Zhu Yao raised her head to look, only to see a bony little figure. It was a child. A child so thin that he was out of shape. He looked as if he had never had a good meal. He was so skinny that only bones were left. His eyes were sunken, and there was not a trace of flesh on his cheeks. From afar, he looked like a small skull. His entire body was so thin that only a small skeleton was left. If not for his earlier shout, Zhu Yao could not help but suspect if he was one of those childlike skeletons that were displayed in some laboratory. Zhu Yao instantly felt a little sad. She, who lived in the modern era, had never seen a child who was this skinny. Even after she entered the cultivation world, among the mortals she occasionally met, there were no children as miserable as him. From the looks of it, he didn't seem to be even 5 years old. "Egg," the child said again, looking straight at her. However, those eyes were exceptionally cloudy, as if they were lacking a soul. His voice was so soft that it would scatter when the wind blew. The child stood there blankly for a moment. Suddenly, he bent down and carried her up with both his hands. "Egg." Only then did Zhu Yao realize. The egg he was talking about was her. She was actually an egg. Zhu Yao nodded her head strongly. As expected, she hit something that looked like a hard wall. It was an eggshell. She really was an egg. No wonder she rolled so quickly earlier. Wait a minute. This child, he couldn't be thinking of eating her, right? Zhu Yao instantly began to imagine 100 ways to cook eggs. Seeing how hungry this child was, it was very possible that she was going to be eaten alive. Don't be like this, little friend. At the very least, tell me what kind of egg it is before I eat it. The child did not have much strength in the first place. After carrying her for a while, he felt a little tired, and simply sat on the ground. Zhu Yao's current body size was actually about the same as his. After the child sat down, his 2 stick-like arms were still wrapped around her. That extremely skeleton-like little head was tightly pressed against her eggshell. It did not move an inch, and did not have the slightest intention of eating. If he doesn't eat me, we can still be friends." After a while, when Zhu Yao was about to think that he had fallen asleep, his sleep-talking voice once again sounded. "Were you abandoned as well?" Abandoned? This child was abandoned by someone. With a single glance, she could tell that this child was not a devil. His entire body was even emitting out a hint of clean and refreshing aura. Did someone intentionally make him appear in a place filled with devilic energy? From his tone, it seemed like he was someone close to him. Zhu Yao instantly felt a sour and astringent feeling in the depths of her heart. Opening her mouth, she wanted to comfort him, but the child did not have the slightest bit of reaction. He simply hugged her without moving. Even her voice was blocked by the hard eggshell. Just like that, he hugged an egg that was even bigger than his body, and sat there for a long time. Suddenly, the surrounding devilic energy began to grow denser. Earlier, she could still see her surroundings clearly, but now, she could not even see the child who was right in front of her. That dark and cold feeling grew stronger and stronger. Even the thick eggshell could not withstand it, and it felt as though it was being pierced by needles. The child seemed to have sensed it as well. His eyes, which were still deathly silent earlier, were instantly dyed with anger, and they actually began to flash with a red glow. Scram! He desperately waved his 2 wooden stick-like hands, waving away the devilic energy around the egg, as though he was madly trying to hide the egg. Scram, don't touch it. Scram. However, his actions and voice did not have the slightest effect. Not only did the devilic energy not disperse, it grew even denser. Zhu Yao's entire egg was wrapped up by the devilic energy, as though there was a huge force pulling her out from the child's embrace. The child grew even more insane. Seeing that the surrounding devilic energy was growing, he suddenly opened his mouth and bit down on his own arm. He bit down with extreme force, as though he was being ruthless. In an instant, blood flowed out. However, with a raise of his hand, he sprinkled his own blood towards Zhu Yao. Wherever his blood landed, the devilic energy seemed to have met its nemesis, instantly dispersing completely. Zhu Yao once again fell back into the child's embrace. His two hands were tightly hugging onto the egg, and as he gently stroked it, he repeatedly muttered, "Don't be afraid, don't be afraid." It was unknown if he was saying it to her, or to himself. Zhu Yao's heart ached. She had never thought that she would be protected by a child, and it was even a child who was so skinny that he looked like he was on his last breath. She suddenly understood a little how a child like him could survive in this place that was overflowing with devilic energy. Actually, she knew in the depths of her heart that the child was merely treating her as a form of spiritual sustenance, which was why he was protecting her with all his might. Most probably, he had been in this place for a very long time, and understood that he could not continue living on. Hence, his eyes were filled with a deathly aura. She was most likely the first living creature he had ever met, so he had unconsciously treated her as his only form of spiritual sustenance. When a person was in despair, they would always find a reason to continue living on. She was the child's reason. Zhu Yao instantly felt her heart ache. Just how old was he? He was so small, and even this egg of hers was a little sturdier than him. If this was the modern era, he should be the treasure of his parents, at the age where he could do whatever he wanted without thinking about anything. Just think about what she was doing when she was his age. She was busy being mischievous, going to the roof and tearing the tiles, and even when she was eating, she had to be carried and coaxed by her parents. As for him, he had already experienced despair to the point where he could not even find a reason to continue living. Zhu Yao felt that she had to do something. At the very least, she could not just watch as the child died in front of her. The light in the depths of his eyes was already growing dimmer, and even the hands that were hugging her were slowly loosening. She believed that in a few days, he would close his eyes forever. What should she do? In such a dark place, she could not even see a radius of a few meters, let alone leaving. In such a dark place, it would be good if there was some light. As though it was responding to her, she suddenly felt the eggshell heating up. The remaining hint of gloomy coldness from the invasion of the devilic energy earlier instantly disappeared without a trace, and it was even getting hotter. Sporadic rays of light were emitted from her body, and in an instant, her entire egg had lit up, just like a light bulb. Egg? The child was stunned as well. Under Zhu Yao's illumination, the surroundings began to light up. It was as though she had injected a hint of life into this deathly silent place. His initially turbid eyes began to emit a bit of light as well, and were no longer as lifeless as before. As expected, light could bring hope to people. Very good. This was the first step. As long as there was hope, it was fine. Zhu Yao instantly heaved a sigh of relief, and the feeling of being a light bulb in the depths of her heart disappeared as well. The next step was to leave this godforsaken place. Zhu Yao rolled on the ground, and broke free from the child's embrace. Where are you going? The child grew anxious. Using both his hands and feet, he quickly pounced over, and hugged onto the egg once again. As though he was extremely afraid that she would throw him away, the depths of his eyes were filled with panic. He could not hear her words, so Zhu Yao had no choice but to roll into his embrace as though she was comforting him. After rolling a few steps, she stopped. She repeated this process again and again. You want me to leave with you? Only then did the child understand her intentions. Zhu Yao circled around him, and then, she chose a direction and continued to roll forward. This time, she did not have to wait, as the child followed her by himself. Paths had to be walked out. No matter where this place was, she had to try to walk out of it. However, an hour later, Zhu Yao despaired. Because, no matter how she walked, what she saw was the same darkness, as though it was boundless. There basically wasn't anything that looked like an exit. And, there wasn't even the slightest hint of a formation, or any other mystic arts ripples. Just what kind of godforsaken place was this? Egg. The child followed after her. Seeing that she was no longer walking, he decided to sit down, and continued to hug her. It was no wonder the child was in such despair, and did not even have the desire to struggle. Even if there was a map in this place, it was basically impossible to walk out of it, right? Ting! Suddenly, she heard a familiar sound. In the darkness in front of her, a row of white words suddenly appeared. It was written in a bold, enlarged font. Ren Wishing of the Three Realms navigation system is at your service. Please enter your destination. Chapter 169. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Wasn't this a little too casual? If you want hope, she will shine. If you want a map, there will be navigation. And what's with that Ren Wishing? Am I still Dongfang Booby? Since when did the heavens become so accommodating to all requests? Zhu Yao's thoughts changed. If she were to order something else, would it come true as well? Hence, she immediately began to imagine various necessities. Hamburgers, spicy gluten, stinky tofu, master, moments later. Nothing happened, alright, she was really too naive. Looking at the blank address bar again, she thought for a moment and said, exit. The words in the air flashed, and a new line immediately appeared. Beginning navigation, please wait, map loading, 10. 20. 30. 40. Zhu Yao's expression darkened. It really was a navigation system. 90. 100. Three Realms Ren Wishing navigation welcomes you. The navigation started below. 10 steps straight ahead. Flips table, what the hell is 10 steps? Shouldn't it be calculated in meters? Moreover, she was now an egg and didn't have legs at all. Who knew how far 10 steps was? He wanted to slap the GPS in the face. Zhu Yao pondered for a moment. She was unable to walk, but the child could. It can guide a child. So it rolled forward a few more times. Sure enough, when the child saw that it wanted to move again, it immediately stood up. This time, Zhu Yao did not roll to the front again. Instead, she circled to the back of the child and pushed him forward, while carefully counting his steps. Only when he had taken 10 steps did he roll in front of him, blocking his way. After a while, the navigation prompt changed again. Turn left and take 5 steps straight. Zhu Yao immediately turned around and continued to push the child. Just like that, the first part of the journey was quite smooth. However, what was the meaning of these increasingly bizarre notifications? What do you mean by there's a fork in the road ahead? What do you mean by moving forward in a wavy pattern? What do you mean by moving forward in a zigzag pattern? Should I walk in an S shape, then a B shape? Although she was retorting, Zhu Yao still had no choice but to continue following the instructions. She herself did not even know how long she had walked in such a strange manner, and she had long become as tired as a dog. Finally, the words destination reached, navigation over, appeared on the navigation. Zhu Yao glanced at her surroundings. Her surroundings were still dark, and there was basically no place that could be called an exit. Damn, what happened to the exit? Thank you for using the Three Realms Ren Wishing navigation system. Goodbye. Give me a good review. Good review your sister. What a scam. Get back here. The line of white characters flashed, as if it had been turned off, and no more characters appeared. Zhu Yao circulated her energy into her dantian, and just as she was about to curse out, a dazzling white light suddenly came from her back, illuminating a large half of the dark sky. Zhu Yao turned to look. The ground that she and the child walked on earlier was currently emitting out waves of white light. That was a formation. The path they had just taken had actually formed a formation. The light was getting closer and closer. In an instant, it had already spread to the soles of their feet. The two of them were immersed in that white light. Egg! The child shouted in panic. The next moment, the scenery in front of her changed. She saw steep stone walls that were alternating between black and red, emitting a strong burnt smell. What is this place? Before Zhu Yao could even be shocked, she felt the ground beneath her feet had become empty, and she was falling straight down. What welcomed her was a wave of scorching heat. She looked down and saw that below her was a sea of fiery red magma. It was constantly burning and tumbling, and from time to time, one or two bubbles would appear. This was actually an active volcano. That teleportation array had sent her into the volcano. And it was even in the air. Mama's egg, can your navigation be a little more reliable? Bad review, I'll definitely give you a 0 negative review. Falling down like this, it would be weird if she wasn't cooked. Most probably, when the volcano erupts next time, what it spits out would not be magma, but egg drop soup. Save me. A long, sharp cry resounded. Zhu Yao simply felt her eggshell tightening. At the moment when she was about to fall into the magma, she was grabbed by something. Her body loosened, and she flew upwards. It was a bird. A bird whose entire body was emitting flames, and behind it, there were even 5 colored tail feathers. Phoenix. Zhu Yao was stunned. This phoenix was still not big, unlike the 4 she saw in her dream back then. This one was merely a little bigger than her egg. Its 2 claws tightly grabbed onto Zhu Yao, and it flew with great difficulty. After expending a lot of energy, it finally flew out of the volcano. Only then did it place Zhu Yao on the ground. The fiery red bird body emitted out a red light, and in an instant, it returned to its human form. It was actually that child who came out with her. He was actually a phoenix of the god race. Why did the little bastard of the phoenix race come here? A man's voice suddenly sounded from behind, carrying a hint of doubt. That was a young man, and he walked over with a smile. Even though he was walking in the volcano that was covered in black ash, it could not conceal his luxurious aura. The child was startled. Without even resting, he immediately hugged onto Zhu Yao tightly, and looked at the man dressed in cotton clothes behind him with a vigilant expression. Though, that man, seeing his actions, slightly frowned. His face, which initially carried a hint of a smile, instantly turned stern. What are you hugging? The child did not reply, and simply anxiously retreated. The man stared intensely at the egg in his hand, and the longer he looked, the wider his eyes grew. His face revealed a furious look, and he sternly said, "Put down that egg, and I will spare your life." The child basically did not listen to him. Suddenly, he transformed into his original form, and once again flew into the sky with Zhu Yao. Halt! The man was furious. In a flash, a gigantic azure dragon rose from the ground, and chased after the little phoenix. A dragon roar instantly resounded through the clouds. Zhu Yao and her little companion were all dumbfounded. Dragon! That man was actually an azure dragon. What was going on? It was fine if it was just a phoenix, but why did a dragon appear as well? Were the god race such common creatures? this was still not the most shocking thing. Following that dragon roar, suddenly, the same sound came from all directions, as though they were responding to it. Between heaven and earth, the roar was filled with that oppressive might. After all, the child was still just a little phoenix. Under the shock of that dragon roar, he had already lost all his strength and fell down from the sky. Zhu Yao followed him down as well, only to see flashing shadows gathering from all directions. After taking a closer look, they were actually dragons of various sizes. There were green and purple dragons of various colors, and they were currently flying towards them. Even between the layers of clouds above, there were quite a few gigantic dragon heads peeking down. The hell, she couldn't be seeing things, right? Dragon, 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 why were there so many dragons? That azure dragon at the beginning took the opportunity to catch the two of them who were constantly falling. With one hand, he carried the egg-shaped Zhu Yao, while the other grabbed onto the child's tattered collar, as though he was trying to pull the child away from the egg. However, he hugged onto Zhu Yao without letting go. The azure dragon tried hard for a long time, yet, he was unable to make her let go. Aojiang, what happened? The dragons who rushed over had already turned into their human forms, and they were tightly surrounded. Zhu Yao roughly looked, and there were actually as many as 100 of them. I saw this kid from the Phoenix clan coming out from the Dragon Mountain, and he was even carrying. The youth, along with the egg, raised it up for the other dragons to see. This is... All of the dragons were startled, and their expressions as they looked at the child were instantly filled with immense rage. Outrageous, he actually dares to come to the Dragon Mountain to steal eggs. What's the meaning of the Phoenix clan? Are they trying to start a war? If you want to start a war, then let's start a war. Don't think that our clan is afraid of them. Since he dares to steal our child, we must definitely seek justice. That's right, the crowd of dragons began to curse at the same time. Only then did Zhu Yao understand the situation. So they thought that the little phoenix had stolen their child. Kid, just who sent you here? Aojiang coldly asked as he carried the child. The child did not reply, instead, he struggled with all the strength in his body, hugging onto Zhu Yao tightly without letting go. He would even occasionally transform into his original form, desperately attacking Aojiang. His eyes were crimson red, and he looked as though he had gone insane. Zhu Yao's heart ached as she watched. He had just come out from that place filled with devilish energy, and the child's state of mind had yet to recover. He was basically unable to listen to their words, and with just a little stimulation, he would fall into madness. Most probably, the only thought in his heart right now was to protect her from being snatched away. Aojiang cast an unknown mystic art, and a chain that was shining with light instantly bound the child. The more he struggled, the tighter the chain became, and not a moment later, the child's entire body was already stained with blood. The hell, are you even human? Zhu Yao was instantly enraged. She simply felt a nameless flame rising in her chest, as though something was being released from the depths of her body. The entire egg once again lit up, though this time, it was not a white light, but a red one. Aojiang simply felt as though his chest was burning. His hand trembled, and he released Zhu Yao. However, a large half of his clothes were completely burnt. The mystic art on the child's body shattered in response as well. Zhu Yao retracted the red light, and grumbled as she once again rolled into the child's embrace. This time, he hugged her even tighter, and his 4 limbs were even wrapped around the eggshell. He muttered in a robotic manner. Egg. Egg. Don't be afraid, don't be afraid. This. Aojiang was dumbfounded. He had never seen a dragon egg that could glow. There's something fishy about this matter. A slightly older man walked out from the crowd of dragons. Let's first check on the number of children in the Dragon Mountain. A dragon beside him immediately transformed into his original form, and flew into the volcano that Zhu Yao fell into earlier. A moment later, he flew back. Reporting to Elder, the number of children is correct. There are 12 of them, no more, no less. When these words fell, all of the dragons were dumbfounded, as they simultaneously turned to look at the egg that the child was hugging. Then where did this egg come from? Elder, this. Aojiang took a step forward. That older man shook his head. He looked at Zhu Yao with a stern expression, and his brows deeply furrowed. I'm afraid, the one inside this egg might not be a child of my dragon race. That's impossible. Aojiang instinctively refuted. This egg clearly contained the aura of a god, and among the god race, other than the children of his dragon race, who else was born from eggs? Aojiang, go and invite the Phoenix clan's patriarch to personally make a trip here. Phoenix clan. Why? His expression darkened. This egg was brought here by this fire phoenix. It must be related to the Phoenix clan. Hurry and go. Chapter 170. The so-called divine race referred to the 4 divine beasts, dragon, phoenix, qilin, and black tortoise. Other than the black tortoise, which was the cornerstone of the world and had appeared once at the beginning of the world, the other 3 god clans all had their own clans. Among them, only the dragon clan was born from eggs, while the qilin clan was born from the womb. As for the phoenix, they don't give birth. Phoenixes were called immortal birds because the moment they died, their bodies would turn into flames and be reborn from the ashes. Therefore, there was no problem of population depletion at all. They would not die anyway. It was just that every reborn phoenix would lose its memory and turn back into a small phoenix. The parent-child relationship of the phoenixes was based on the first person they met after their nirvana, which was the so-called nestling plot. After the dragon clan informed the phoenix clan, the patriarch came very quickly. Zhu Yao thought that it would be an uncle, but the one who came was actually an auntie. Unexpectedly, the auntie didn't take care of her shiny egg. Instead, she hugged the skinny child and cried her heart out. As she cried, she shouted, Xiao, Xiao, so the child was her second son, Xiao Bai. 2 years ago, he accidentally fell into the nether abyss. He didn't expect that he would appear here. Zhu Yao clearly sensed that when the auntie mentioned the nether abyss, everyone's expressions were a little off, and their expressions when looking at the children were all filled with disbelief. The auntie had found her son, and was very happy. However, the child evidently did not appreciate her kindness. When the auntie appeared, other than glancing at her for a moment, no matter what the auntie said after that, he would not budge an inch, and continued to hug Zhu Yao tightly. Only then did the auntie see the egg. However, no one knew what kind of egg she was after studying with the dragon clan. The dragon race felt that among the 4 god races, only the dragon race laid eggs. There was no doubt that the egg was a dragon. However, it had always been difficult for the dragon race to have children. Every dragon egg was stared at like an eyeball, and when a dragon egg was born, there would always be a phenomenon. In the past hundreds of thousands of years, there had only been 12 phenomena. In other words, there were only 12 dragon eggs in existence. It was impossible for it to be left outside. Andy Fong felt that this was a phoenix egg. Although they never laid eggs, it didn't mean that they didn't know how to lay eggs, right? If phoenixes relied on nirvana to be reborn, then where did the first phoenix in the world come from? And weren't all of the harpies born from eggs? Not only was this a phoenix egg, but it could also be an opportunity given by the heavenly Tao to the Phoenix clan, giving them a chance to continue the lineage of other clans apart from Nirvana. There were also some people who thought that this might be the egg of the black tortoise. Although no one had seen the so-called Black Tortoise clansman, there must be a reason why it was one of the 4 divine beasts like the other 3 clans. Perhaps this was the time for the Black Tortoise to return. Everyone thought that they were right. It had always been difficult for the Protoss to have children, and every child was extremely precious. Therefore, both sides hoped that the egg that had suddenly appeared was one of their own. As for Cheelin, it wasn't there anyway, so there was no need to count it in. The 2 races tacitly ignored him. Finally, after the clan leaders of the 2 clans discussed, researched, and bickered. After reaching a consensus, they decided to hatch it first. Whether it was a chicken egg, duck egg, or century egg, everything would be clear once the child hatched. As for the question of who would incubate the egg, the Dragon clan did not fight over it. Because they temporarily did not have this skill. The eggs of the Dragon clan were all placed in volcanoes, and were incubated under the natural high temperature. Because the incubation grounds were specially chosen by the Dragon clan, and were specifically designed for the babies of their own clan, there were specially placed formations to increase the temperature. They had yet to find out what this egg was, so this method was evidently not feasible. Hence, the job of incubating the egg was handed over to the Phoenix clan. That's right, Auntie planned on bringing her home to incubate the egg. When Zhu Yao thought about how she would be stuffed under her buttocks by a large phoenix every day, she felt unwell. In the end, it was still the powerful Xiao Bai who played a crucial role. Because, he refused to let go. No matter who came to persuade him, uncle, auntie, or big brother. Oh, it was Xiao Bai's father, mother, big brother, and even her little brother who was said to be 200 years younger than him came to persuade him. He just refused to let go of the egg. Auntie had checked on Xiao Bai's injuries back in the Dragon clan. His injuries were very heavy, and his vitality was damaged. The devilish energy had already invaded his divine sense. Logically speaking, he definitely wouldn't be able to survive. However, Xiao Bai managed to hold on. However, he refused to cooperate with the treatment, as though other than the egg in his embrace, he could not hear any other sounds. Zhu Yao sighed. Xiao Bai's injuries were not just on his body, they were even more serious in his mind. Auntie had no choice but to allow Xiao Bai to hug the egg and treat his injuries. After a few days of recuperation, Xiao Bai's face finally had some color to it. However, Zhu Yao felt even more sleepy. Initially, the eggshell, which could still be as bright as a light bulb, could no longer emit even the slightest bit of light. Even her consciousness was a little blurry. Initially, she had been worried about Xiao Bai's injuries, and was forcing herself to wait for him to recover. However, no matter what, she could not stop her eyelids from growing heavier. She could faintly hear Auntie saying something to Xiao Bai in a flustered and exasperated manner. Then, Xiao Bai returned to his original form. Compared to the time when he was at the volcano, his figure was much more beautiful. His rainbow-colored feathers were even emitting out a gentle glow. With a flap of his wings, he pulled her into his gigantic wings. Zhu Yao simply felt as though her entire body was soaked in warm water, and it was extraordinarily warm. She could not help but feel even more sleepy, and finally, she completely sank into darkness. When Zhu Yao opened her eyes, above her head was a smiling face. That was a middle-aged uncle, and he was merely a palm's distance away from her. His eyes were very gentle, like flowing water, causing people to unconsciously let down their guard. Seeing that she had opened her eyes, the uncle's smile grew a little deeper. She was a little stunned, and realized that she was no longer inside the egg. Raising her hand, her sleeves were even embroidered with the unique phoenix totem of fluorescent wind sect. What was going on? You are. She had never seen the person in front of her before, yet, she could sense the immense kindness coming from his body. The uncle smiled, and did not reply. He simply gestured for her to extend her hand. Zhu Yao extended her hand according to his intentions, and the uncle unceremoniously held onto her wrist for a moment, before nodding his head in satisfaction. Then, he reached out his hand to touch the top of her head, and lightly patted it. His face was filled with love, as though he was silently comforting her not to be afraid. This kind and amiable expression made Zhu Yao recall a saying, "A father's love is like a mountain." Dad. Ah, Pui, Senior. May I ask where this is? Zhu Yao sized up the room. Other than a table and the bed she was lying on, there were no other furnishings. This layout was really familiar. The uncle didn't answer, but he suddenly handed over a glass of water. Zhu Yao was dumbstruck, so she casually took it over. Thank you. He gulped it down in a few mouthfuls and was about to continue asking questions. Another fruit was handed over. The fruit was red like an apple, but it exuded a dense immortal aura. It looked very delicious. Thus, she took it without hesitation. Thank you. He still smiled gently. The fruit juice was full, and when he took a bite, there was a lingering fragrance in his mouth. The uncle considerately handed over a handkerchief. Ah. Thank you. Zhu Yao had no choice but to accept it, as though she had been saying those words the entire time. After finishing the fruit, he handed her a plate of pastries. This is more fragrant than the fruit. Zhu Yao could not help but take it again. Next, there were all kinds of preserved fruits, candied plums, and sweets that she had never eaten before. When she came back to her senses, she was already stuffed. And the uncle still continued to feed her with all kinds of food. Every time she ate one, his eyes would shine a little brighter. Only then did Zhu Yao recall it. Uncle, who are you? You're awake. A white figure suddenly appeared at the door. Master. The one who entered was Yu Yan. Master finally remembered to pick up a disciple? He's so late this time. Bad review. He hurriedly walked over, sat at the edge of the bed, grabbed her hand, and began to inspect it. She did not know if it was a misconception, but the moment he sat down, he seemed to have pushed the uncle next to him, and directly pushed him to a corner. Yu Yan looked for a moment, and only after confirming that there were no problems with his disciple's body did he heave a sigh of relief. He turned to look at the man who was already pushed to the other side of the bed, yet still had a gentle smile on his face. Frowning, he then said with extreme reluctance. Thank you, Master. It couldn't be. So it wasn't the uncle, nor was it her father, but her grandmaster. Shouldn't grandmaster have a head of white hair, have a sage-like demeanor, and look like the official expression pack used by the hall master? He's so kind and cute, is that really okay? The uncle stood up, and did not reply Yu Yan's words. He still looked at the two of them with a face full of smiles. Then, he reached out his hand to pat Zhu Yao's head, and then, his figure disappeared in a flash, leaving behind a pile of snacks. Ah! Was this person who passionately fed the younger generation really her grandmaster? There must be a mistake in the method she used to wake up, right? Your injuries were too severe, and you were unconscious for 3 months. Yu Yan softly said. Injuries? Didn't she fall asleep? She clearly remembered that she turned into an egg, and then, she fell asleep while being hatched by someone. When did she get injured? Yu Yan frowned, and then slowly said. Back then, when we left, your organs were damaged for no reason, your meridians were all severed, and even your divine sense had almost collapsed. Wait a minute. Leave? Leave where? Zhu Yao was a little confused. Suddenly, she had a bold guess. Where is this place? When the mistress asked me to bring you back, this place is naturally Fluorescent Wind Sect. Fluorescent Wind Sect. Your body seems to have been struck by a type of special binding art. You are unable to leave Fluorescent Wind's sect. Yu Yan's expression was a little heavy. Back then, when he brought his disciple away, her divine sense had almost collapsed, and her entire body was filled with mysterious wounds as well, and they were getting more and more severe. However, after returning to Fluorescent Wind's sect, this situation stopped. Zhu Yao was startled, and immediately materialized a water mirror. In the mirror was a woman who looked to be in her teens, and she looked somewhat similar to a certain person she knew. Chapter 171. Zhu Yao had returned. She had returned to Enchanting version 6.0. The god race still only existed in legends, but what was with the phoenixes she saw back then, and the dragons that filled the sky to make their presence known? Was it all an illusion? She felt like she had finally cleared the boss, only to have the officials announce that they were going to rewind the game. She also discovered that there was a debuff on her. She was trapped, and was struck by a mystic art that even her Grandmaster uncle had never seen before. She could not leave the 50-kilometer radius in the direction of Fluorescent Wind's sect. Otherwise, her meridians would break and her divine sense would explode. This was also the reason why she fainted. As a person who was used to staying at home, she didn't mind not being able to go out, but she still had a mission. Since she had turned back into Enchanting, the bug from before still needed to be fixed. Initially, she had wanted to first dispel the misunderstanding between Immerse and Fluorescent Wind's sect. However, right from the start, the plot did not develop in the direction she had expected. Shimen Feng had been beaten in advance. Although it did not cause any casualties, it was not much different from what Immerse had done, and it was even worse. Surprisingly, during the 3 months that she was unconscious, the 4 phoenixes that set the immortal world ablaze did not appear. Didn't that prove that the mission hadn't failed and that the bug could still be resolved? And then there was the egg that she had suddenly turned into. She clearly remembered everything clearly, but now it seemed like a dream. When he woke up, the Protoss still hadn't appeared. With such a brain-burning plot unfolding, she felt that she didn't have enough IQ at all. In regards to these things that she could not understand, Zhu Yao felt that there was no need to think about it. After lying in bed for 3 months, it was time to go out for some fresh air. However, the moment she pushed open the door, she felt as if she had transmigrated again. Trembling, he pointed at the grassland in front of him. "Master. What is that ball-shaped unknown creature with white hair on the ground?" "Rabbit." Yu Yan still had the same unchanging calm expression. "What about the winged green sphere on the tree?" "Bird." Yu Yan continued to answer. "What's that colored ball?" "Chicken." "What's that brown cylinder?" "Monkey." "What about the long-tailed pig on the hillside?" "That's a horse." "Are you kidding me? Is that a horse? Is there a horse whose belly hangs down to the ground? How come only 3 months had passed? All the animals mutated. At a glance, every one of them was so fresh and refined that they were infinitely close to being spherical. Especially the red-crowned crane in the sky. Stop trying to fly, aren't your little wings tired? You're so fat that you're about to fall off." Well, it had already fallen off. Yu Yan sighed. Only then did she explain. "Master raised him." "Ah." Zhu Yao was dumbfounded. "Grandmaster raised it? Whose animal could be raised like this? His ancestors must have owned a pig farm, right?" Just as he was speaking, a white figure flew over from afar and landed in front of them in a short while. It was the uncle she had met once and was filled with fatherly love. Yu Yan nodded as a greeting. "Master." "Dad," "Apui," "Grandmaster." Their temperaments were too similar. It was purely a reflex. Grandmaster was carrying a big sack on his shoulder. He was still smiling amiably. Suddenly, he put down the sack and opened it. From inside, he took out an immortal fruit. He then passed it over to Zhu Yao. For me. Zhu Yao was startled. Uncle Grandmaster still did not speak, but his smile became even more amiable. Zhu Yao stared at that glistening red divine fruit, and then turned to look at it. The unique pig-shaped creatures in the surroundings. In an instant, the corner of her lips twitched. She did not want to look so fresh and refined. Ho ho. Thank you, Grandmaster. No. No need, I don't like to eat fruits. Uncle Grandmaster smiled. Then, from the sack, he took out pastries, candied fruits, and various snacks. There were all sorts of them. His eyes were sparkling as he passed them over to her with love. Zhu Yao instantly felt her stomach aching. Logically speaking, she was a junior, so she had to accept the things given by her elders. Furthermore, her master had said that in order to treat her injuries, Grandmaster specially came out of the lightning divine tower. However, she weakly looked towards Yu Yan at the side. Master, save me. I don't want to eat like a pig. Master. Probably because Zhu Yao's gaze was too bitter, Yu Yan received her SOS. Yu Yao is currently a deity, and has long abstained from eating. Uncle Grandmaster blanked for a moment. He glanced at Zhu Yao, and then let out a long sigh. With a regretful look, he gave up on feeding her. Reaching out his hand, he patted her head, kept the sack, turned around, and happily walked towards the other animals. Master. Was this really her Grandmaster? Master simply likes to feed people. Yu Yan replied with a calm look. He turned to look at the top of his disciple's head, where his master had patted. His brows slightly furrowed. It's not that he likes to feed people, he likes to feed pigs, right? What should she do with a Grandmaster who likes to feed people? Master doesn't like to talk much. If you don't like it, just reject it. He could not help but raise his hand to stroke his disciple's head. Stroke, 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 is this all right? It's fine. Then, Amen. Master. Speak. Can you not mess up my hairstyle? This habit of stroking other people's hair was passed down in the sect as well, right? Dead on the second day after Zhu Yao woke up, Uncle Grandmaster returned to the lightning divine hole. In the first place, the reason why he came out was to treat Zhu Yao's injuries. Since she had already recovered, naturally, he retreated with success. On the day he left, those ball-shaped creatures in the courtyard were all very sad. They all came out to send him off, and they even chased after him for several hundred meters. Especially that fat celestial crane. Flapping its wings, it fell from the sky time and time again, only to chase after him again and again. That scene of him sending him off for 18 kilometers was simply touching. Zhu Yao waved the handkerchief in her hand. Grandmaster, you can leave in peace. I will properly eat up these fattened animals of yours. During the days she was unconscious, the reconstruction of Fluorescent Wind sect had already been completed. This efficiency and speed, even Zhu Yao was shocked when she saw it. Other than the occasional scorched, crooked trees at the foot of the mountain, there were completely no signs of it being destroyed before. Other than the place she lived in. The place she and her master lived in was a floating mountain above Fluorescent Wind sect's main mountain, called Dawnfall Peak. This place was located at the center of the divine vein, and was the place with the densest divine energy. It was also the place she woke up in back then. However, she clearly remembered that back then, she lived in an exquisite and luxurious building. Although it wasn't big, it was still a luxurious villa. But why did it turn into a straw cottage now? Could it be that Dawnfall Peak was not included in the reconstruction of Fluorescent Wind sect? At the very least, she was the second generation of an official, right? And it had been a few days since she woke up, yet not a single person from Fluorescent Wind sect came to visit her, including her cheap mother, Enchanting. What happened to the promised precious daughter? Towards her question, Yu Yen simply replied with a single sentence. Too noisy. Ah. What did he mean? He did not reply, and simply lightly waved his sleeves. The entire surroundings of Dawnfall Peak lit up with red light. Formation. Zhu Yao was startled. The corner of her lips twitched, and she said, Master, you couldn't have placed down an isolation formation in Dawnfall Peak, right? Yu Yen calmly nodded. He completely did not have the self-awareness of behaving atrociously in someone else's territory. It was no wonder no one came to visit her. I want to see my mother. After all, she was her mother, so she had to report her safety or something. You want me to dispel the formation? Yu Yen looked at her strangely. Zhu Yao nodded. After all, this is Fluorescent Wind sect. It wasn't good to keep her master outside, right? Yu Yao, everyone knows now. You are a disciple of my lightning divine whole. Therefore, although no one had entered this place recently, but there are many messengers waiting outside. Messages? Those paper cranes. It's just a few messages. I'll take a look at them when I get back. Activate the formation. Yu Yen once again looked at her. Under Zhu Yao's urging, he finally opened the formation. Zhu Yao simply felt a flash of red light in her surroundings, and it was as though a layer of plastic film had been peeled off from the sky. It receded in every direction. Suddenly, a few black dots with small wings appeared in the sky, and then more and more appeared. More and more. Zhu Yao simply felt as though a huge shadow was flying towards her with a ferocious aura. This is a paper crane. These are locusts. Zhu Yao reflexively hugged her head, but the large swarm of locusts charged straight towards her. Just as she was about to be buried within the pile of messengers, Yu Yen cast a fire-type mystic art, and managed to incinerate the group of paper cranes in time. However, her face was covered in ash. Was there a need to be so exaggerated? Did she have so many acquaintances? Zhu Yao picked up the leftover piece of paper, and saw that it wrote, Junior Marshal Sister and. She could not see the rest clearly. Who were these people? Junior Marshal Sister, you're completely healed. Suddenly, a green-robed man flew over from the sky. He looked very handsome, and his clear eyes were clearly filled with joy. I heard from my master's wife that your injuries were very severe, and I've been very worried. However, this Dawnfall Peak suddenly placed down a barrier, so I didn't have the chance to see you. Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. The man took a step forward, and said with a sincere tone. Initially, I was thinking that if you didn't leave the mountain, even if I had to force my way in, I would still come and see you. Seeing that he was getting more and more excited as he spoke, Zhu Yao could not help but interrupt him. Who is it? The man's excited expression stiffened. The corner of his lips twitched, and then, he continued with a smile. Junior Marshal Sister, do you not remember me? I'm Su Nguyen, your senior marshal brother Su. Oh. It's him. No wonder she felt that he looked a little familiar. So he was the male lead in that precognitive dream. However, on the day of the lightning tribulation, his solemn and bitter look was too different from his current excited expression that looked as though he was on drugs. She was unable to recognize him for a moment. Junior Marshal Sister Ian, it's great to see that you're fine. His eyes sank a little, as he stared straight at her, as though his entire heart and eyes were filled with her. His focused expression caused Zhu Yao to uncontrollably tremble for a moment. Did this person really take the wrong medicine? Fellow deity Su. Zhu Yao rubbed off the goosebumps that suddenly appeared on her body. I wonder how that Miss Mo is now. The light in Su Nguyen's eyes instantly dimmed, as though he had suffered a huge blow. Junior Marshall's sister. I have already explained the matter that day to my master's wife. You must believe me, I have no relationship with that person at all. I don't even know her. In this world, the only person I, Su Nguyen, wish to perform a dual cultivation with, is you, Junior Marshall's sister. The hell, the male lead had a change of heart. Was there such a thing in the plot? Don't deviate from the script, hey. Dual cultivation. Yu Yan, who had been standing at the side without saying a word, suddenly coldly uttered these two words. Zhu Yao simply felt her heart drop, as though she had fallen into an ice cave. Chapter 172. High Deity. Su Nguyen looked towards Yu Yan, bowed, and said, Junior Marshall's sister Yin and I had originally held a dual cultivator ceremony, but it was disrupted by someone. It's this Su's fault for making Junior Marshall's sister worry. From today onwards, I will treat her with all my heart. I hope that High Deity can be at ease and hand her over to me. Hand her over to him. Yu Yan's face instantly darkened, as he turned to look at his own disciple. Every single word was so cold that it looked like ice crystals were about to burst out. Dual cultivator ceremony. No. Zhu Yao stomped her feet in anger. Clearly, it had already been cancelled. Don't say such misleading words, hey. Who's going to dual cultivate with him? Junior Marshall's sister, are you blaming me? Su Nguyen's expression grew even sadder. Don't worry, from today onwards, nothing that will make you sad will definitely happen. What does what you do have to do with me? Was this person crazy today? Why did he have to say such specious words? Wasn't the one he liked to Mo Xian Xian? I've already said it that day. Our dual cultivator ceremony has been cancelled. I can't possibly marry you. I didn't do it that day, and I won't do it in the future either. Junior Marshall's sister, I know you blame me. His face looked as though he did not want to say such angry words. But, I will wait for the day you think it through. Ever since the day Master Wife betrothed you to me, Nguyen has already decided that in this life, you will be the only one, and I will definitely not let you suffer the slightest bit of grievance. High Deity. He suddenly turned towards Yu Yan, as though he was expressing his determination in front of a senior. He raised his hand and swore. This Su's feelings for Junior Marshall's sister are as clear as the sun and moon. If there's the slightest bit of falsehood, I'm willing to be struck by lightning, I'm willing. Scram. Ah. Su Nguyen was stunned halfway through his oath, and for a moment, he did not understand. High Deity, rumble. 5 bright heavenly lightning bolts blasted towards the top of Su Nguyen's head. It really was 5 lightning bolts. High Deity. Su Nguyen exclaimed. He hurriedly rode on his sword and fled out of Dawnfall Peak. 5 heavenly lightning bolts were still chasing after his butt. Yu Yan then looked towards his stupid disciple at the side. Zhu Yao simply felt her heart tremble for a moment. Master, listen to my explanation. She really wasn't familiar with him. Yu Yan's expression however turned even colder. Grabbing onto Zhu Yao, his figure flashed, and the two of them had already returned to the straw cottage. When she regained her senses, Zhu Yao was pressed onto the bed for the first time. Dual cultivation. A certain master had completely gone berserk. Zhu Yao seemed to be able to see the surging flames of fury burning in his surroundings, and every single word he said sounded as though he was gritting his teeth. You. And, him. Zhu Yao was pressed down by him to the point where she could not move at all. His chilling aura filled her entire body, and the two of their faces were stuck extremely close to each other. Such a domineering CEO posture. Could it be the legendary bed dong? Did her master fly into a rage out of humiliation and want to use force on her? Does that mean that something shameful is going to happen next? Although the atmosphere was not right. But, I'm suddenly looking forward to it. What should I do? Seeing that she didn't reply, Yu raised his voice. That's right, it's this style. This soul-stirring instantly possessed the domineering CEO Yu. Zhu Yao grew excited, and hugged him back. With a serious look, she said. Come, don't pity me just because I'm a delicate flower. I can do it. Let's do something that surpasses the relationship between master and disciple. Where should we start? Ripping her clothes, or taking off her pants? CEO Yu instantly retreated. Yu Yan's entire body was filled with anger, and under his disciple's expectant expression, it instantly dissipated. In the end, it turned into a long sigh. Having a disciple who did not play by the rules, his heart felt a little stifled. Burying his body into her hair, he lightly sniffed the scent of her hair, and calmed his still unsettled emotions. He had always been calm and composed, and such impulsive emotions were a little foreign to him. However, when he thought of the one and only disciple he held in his palm being snatched away by someone else, he felt so irritable that he wanted to hack someone. Although his disciple was stupid, she was still his. Yu Wang, your sister's desire. Can't you just properly date? Your master doesn't like the way that person looks at you. Zhu Yao instantly felt warmth in the depths of her heart, as though something was about to spill out. After a long while, she replied. I don't like it either. I only like it when you look at me this way. Yu Yan was silent for a moment, yet, he hugged her even tighter, as though he was trying to confirm something. Her ears were filled with the sound of his gentle breathing. After a long while, Yu Wang, let's do a dual cultivation. What was called, when the clouds parted to reveal the moon? What was called, when the willow trees have a glimmer of hope? What was called, when good and evil will be repaid? Ah Pui, this sentence was a little off topic. In any case, when she heard her master take the initiative to bring up the topic of dual cultivation, Zhu Yao felt that after transmigrating for so long, she had finally encountered something that could make her feel better. Just thinking about it made her a little excited. However, after thinking about it for a moment, she felt that as a girl, shouldn't she be a little more reserved, and reject him out of courtesy? Then later on, should she welcome him or reject him? Or should she half conceal him? What kind of expression should she use to perfectly express her little shyness? So conflicted. Just when she was still struggling with herself, Yu Yan suddenly stood up and carried her up. Zhu Yao widened her eyes. It can't be, right? It's our first time, and he's already in such a state. Yu Yan tapped on the center of her forehead, and a set of divine energy guidance and circulation technique instantly appeared in her mind. What's this? Yu Yan released her, sat cross-legged at the side, and said with a stern look. This is the dual cultivation technique. You simply have to guide out divine energy with me at the same time, and circulate it according to this technique. Didn't she always want to perform dual cultivation with him? He was going to fulfill her wish. That's it. She didn't have to be naked, and she didn't have to merge her yin and yang. Yu Yan nodded. The hell? She had already taken off her pants, and you're telling me this? Isn't dual cultivation something that can only be done between husband and wife? Then, there should at least be some procedures that can only be done between husband and wife, right? She couldn't accept it. Yu Yan blanked for a moment. As though he had thought of something, a hint of redness flashed across his jade-like face. His eyes wandered about for a moment, before he said. The dual cultivation technique in the divine realm is different from the lower realm. There's no need for it to be so complicated. People who have already obtained a divine body, naturally do not value their bodies. I'm heavy. Ah. Yu Yan was startled. Zhu Yao stared straight at his face, and said with emphasis on every single word. I said, I'm heavy. This old lady here just wants to eat meat, so what about it? WH. Nonsense. Yu Yan tried his best to frown. You're a practitioner, how can you be infatuated with such things? Then I won't cultivate. Pouncing forward, he pressed down. Yu Yan was caught off guard for a moment, and was pinned down by him. Yu Yao. Shut up. Zhu Yao immediately kissed him, fragrant. There was no reason for her to let go of a fresh meat that delivered itself to her doorstep. Zhu Yao did not hold back at all, as she touched the sturdy body beneath her. Her hands moved lower, that day, until the very end. Zhu Yao did not succeed. It really wasn't because her team members were not working hard, but because the enemy team members were too despicable. Not only did she not succeed in seducing him, she was even fixed on the spot, and had to listen to an entire 4 hours of moral education. A certain master started from the history of the first person to cultivate a deity's body, extended it to the initial loyalty of the various cultivation sects, and then raised it to the importance of peace in the divine realm, as well as the important topic of how deities could continue to flourish. He quoted from the past and the present, patiently guided her, sincerely and with a firm attitude, extinguished the little flame in Zhu Yao's heart. In the end, Zhu Yao's conclusion was, she might as well have something with Su Nuyen. Yu Yao. At the very end, he pulled her into his embrace. The kind that was pulled from the bottom of the bed. That's right, she was kicked off the bed. There are too many mysteries surrounding you. Your master promised that I would help you investigate them clearly. After everything is settled, no matter what you do, I will definitely not stop you. Can I really do anything? You won't kick me off the bed. All right, for the sake of this promise, she felt that she could endure a little longer. Ho ho. When the time comes, should she steam it? Or braise it? Coo. She still preferred the original taste. Xan. Enchanting nudged her own daughter who was evidently distracted. Coo. Zhu Yao retracted her thoughts, and instantly retracted the pink bubbles on her body. Mother, what's the matter? She looked at her daughter strangely. Weren't you the one who came to look for me? What's wrong? Could it be that your injuries are acting up again? Where are they? Let mother take a look. Enchanting instantly became anxious. Oh, I'm fine. Only then did Zhu Yao recall the proper business. Mother, other than reporting that I'm safe, I came here today to ask you, when did you find out about a person called Immerse? Unexpectedly, when Enchanting heard this foreign name, not only did she not reveal any feelings of disgust, she was stunned for a moment, and had a confused look. Immerse. Who's she? Is she a disciple of the sect? Mother, you don't know her. Zhu Yao was startled. She's the person who claimed to be Su Nuyen's wife on the day of the protection pair ceremony. It's her. Only then did Enchanting recall. Glancing at her daughter, she sighed and said. Speaking of which, that child Nuyen really can't be blamed. He told me before that he has never met that lady, let alone become a protection pair practitioner with her. In my opinion, it's just someone with ulterior motives, framing him, and intentionally causing a conflict. Right now, the Four Corners continent looks peaceful on the surface, but in private, there are endless undercurrents. Adding that fluorescent wind sect only has the two of us left, mother and daughter, we would naturally be targeted by others. Enchanting had a helpless look. But don't worry, daughter. Now that you've entered Lightning Divine Hall, I'm afraid they won't dare to have any ideas on us anymore. Although I'm not sure who the mastermind was that day, it has nothing to do with Nguyen, so you mustn't blame him. Soon Nguyen really doesn't know that woman. Of course. Mother, do you trust him that much? Not really. Enchanting thought that she was throwing a tantrum and thought that she was biased towards others, so she said a little joyfully. It's a disciple who ascended from the same world as him, who personally confirmed this matter. In the lower realm, he indeed did not have a protection pair practitioner. Zhu Yao frowned. Whether he and Immerse were husband and wife, she was the clearest. But now, he even specially invited someone else to testify. What was he trying to do? The faint guess in the depths of her heart was now instantly clear. Initially, she thought that the reason why Immerse hated Fluorescent Wind Sept was because of Enchanting's act of breaking up a pair of lovers. However, after she became Enchanting, she automatically dissolved the engagement, yet, Su Nguyen did not appreciate her kindness. Furthermore, he had appeared in front of her many times, and from his words, it was clear that he wanted to mend his relationship with her. Now, he even denied the feelings between him and Immerse. These two attitudes, which were completely different from what she saw in her dreams, caused her to be unable to help but suspect his motives and schemes. Immerse hated Enchanting, not only because she injured her during the protection pair ceremony, but also because she had sent people to hunt her down time and time again. She had no place to stay in the divine realm. However, looking at this cheap mother's expression, before the protection pair ceremony, she basically did not know who Immerse was. Hence, the matter of Immerse being hunted down in the higher realm couldn't have been done by her. And the only person who knew of her existence was Su Nguyen, whose attitude was completely different from before. She suddenly recalled that when Gooden made things difficult for Immerse for the first time, he had once said that he was guided by a gold deity. Su Nguyen's cultivation just happened to be a gold deity. The one who wanted to kill Immerse was Su Nguyen. Why did he want to kill her? To marry Enchanting. However, why did he change his mind in the end, and change his mind to save Immerse? Seeing her conflicted expression, Enchanting held onto her hand and patted it. I know you've just woken up, and haven't had much contact with anyone. So, it's understandable that you don't wish to dual cultivate with your senior martial brother Su. However, there's no need to reject him so hastily. Nguyen is a good child. After some time, you will naturally understand. After all, time reveals a person's heart. After some time, time reveals a person's heart. If it was really as she guessed, this person's heart was a little too deeply buried. Mother, you trust him that much? Enchanting smiled, and said with a confident expression. He's your father's personal succeeding disciple. No matter what, he's one of us who knows his roots. However, this one of them, in the end, destroyed Fluorescent Wind Sept. Mother, there's something I want to tell you. She did not want to harm the innocent, yet, she did not want to passively take a beating either. Back then, when I left with my master, I once saw that Immerse on the road. Back then, she was being chased by someone, and it seems like the person chasing her was a disciple of our Fluorescent Wind sect. Chased? I didn't. Enchanting was startled for a moment, and then, she instantly reacted. As a sect master, which one of them wasn't an extremely astute person? After pondering for a moment, she was able to figure out the key points within. Though Immerse had caused a huge ruckus in Fluorescent Wind Sept, no matter what, she was still a disciple of Advent Cloud Hall, so it was not her place to deal with her. Let alone sending people to pursue her, such a despicable method. However, if the people were not sent by her, then who could it be? Enchanting stood up with a sunken expression, and began to pace back and forth in the room. Are you sure you didn't see wrongly? Those people who were chasing her were really disciples of our sect. I'm not sure either. It's just that they seem to have a phoenix-shaped imprint on their clothes. These people were naturally made up by her, however. Zhu Yao understood that Enrich would definitely investigate them. Enrich took a deep breath, and her expression sank even more. A moment later, she said, return for now. Mother will deal with these matters. Zhu Yao nodded, and then obediently returned to Dawnfall Peak. She had already said what she needed to say. She did not wish to overly rely on the dreams she saw, and lose the ability to judge things. Hence, she could not completely deduce Su Nuyen's actions based on what she saw in her dreams. Chapter 173. Zhu Yao did not know how Enrich investigated in the end, but a few days later, Su Nuyen suddenly went into closed-door training. This cheap old lady must have found out something, hence, she grew suspicious of Su Nuyen. Zhu Yao was relieved. As long as Enrich had her guard up, even if Su Nuyen and Xianxian's old feelings were rekindled, it wouldn't be that easy to topple Fluorescent Wind's sect. Speaking of Su Nuyen, in her precognitive dreams, she still felt that he was devoted to his wife. Although he wasn't a good person, he could be considered as a lover. However, ever since he denied his feelings for Xianxian several times, and even wanted her to marry him, this person had become a complete trash in Zhu Yao's heart. However, as long as he did not have the chance to come into contact with Xianxian, then Fluorescent Wind sect's crisis of being exterminated would be resolved. Zhu Yao had a dream. Ever since she started cultivating, other than those precognitive dreams that revealed spoilers, she rarely dreamed anymore. She had almost forgotten what it felt like to truly dream. Right now, she felt as though her entire body was submerged in warm water, yet, she did not feel the slightest suffocating feeling of drowning. Instead, she felt a sense of peace and tranquility, which made her feel extremely at ease. In front of her eyes, there would occasionally be a field of 5 colors, and occasionally, there would be a field of green. Her consciousness was a little blurry, as though she was unable to focus no matter what. She could faintly hear the sound of shallow breathing. It was a little familiar, yet, she was unable to identify who it belonged to. Her entire body felt as though she was floating in the air, yet, unexpectedly, she felt exceptionally at ease in the depths of her heart. She did not know how long she maintained this state for, but her vision gradually turned blurry, as though it was a large lump of green. Light shone out from the gaps of the green, and shone onto her body. A moment later, the light weakened by a lot, and was now only a scattered spot. The large lump of green grew darker as well, and then, it turned pure black. Just like that, the 2 colors constantly changed. After a long period of time, she could actually faintly hear a voice. That voice was very gentle. In the beginning, she could only hear a few syllables, and then, it slowly became clearer. However, she was still unable to identify it. She could faintly hear the word "little sister," repeated over and over again. Zhu Yao silently pondered. I wonder which family's unlucky child went missing. At first, the voice was a little immature, but it slowly became immature. After a period of being hoarse and unpleasant to the ears, it slowly became steady and gentle. Every syllable was like a light breeze caressing one's face, making one feel sleepy. Wasn't she already asleep? All right, she was just about to slip into a deep sleep. The voice beside his ear suddenly became clear. The tone was 70% gentle, 20% anxious, and 10% helpless. Little sister, why haven't you come out yet? What? Zhu Yao fiercely opened her eyes, only to see a snow-white flash of light, carrying a dense killing intent, slashing towards her. Holy shit! Zhu Yao instantly regained her senses. Rolling on the ground, she dodged it. In an instant, a deep, arc-shaped ditch appeared on the grassland. That was a wind blade. If she had been a little slower, she would have been cut in half. The depths of Zhu Yao's heart turned cold. Before she could even react, the next wave of attacks had already arrived, and hundreds of spiritual swords were flying straight towards her. With a wave of her hand, she formed a seal and erected a protective barrier around her. Only then did she have the time to look at the person who ambushed her. Not far above her, a human figure was currently standing on top of a sword. He was dressed in a familiar black robe, and his entire being seemed to have melded into the night. Zhu Yao's heart skipped a beat. She thought that she had seen the devil who tried to kill her earlier, but after taking a closer look, she realized that she was wrong. The person on top of the sword was clearly a woman, and her cultivation level was only that of a profound deity. A concealment formation was cast on her face, and her face could not be seen clearly. However, she could sense that her eyes, which were filled with killing intent, were currently staring at her. "Who's this? Who are you? I haven't even seen you appear before. Is there a need to fight the moment we meet?" The black-clothed person did not reply. Seeing that she had dodged the spiritual swords, she immediately summoned her divine sword and attacked her. The sword flashed with a white light, and it was imbued with heavy sword intent. Zhu Yao immediately formed a seal, summoning 5 heavenly lightning bolts to strike towards her. However, her figure was extremely fast, and she dodged them in just a few moments. The sword slashed past. Though Zhu Yao had already dodged it, she could still feel the piercing pain from the sharp sword energy. Countless spiritual swords once again materialized on the sword, and they flew towards Zhu Yao from all directions. "The hell, she's bullying me for not having any weapons, right?" Zhu Yao frowned. She immediately summoned a purple lightning bolt, but this time, it was not aimed at the other party. Instead, she reached out her hand and grabbed the air, instantly grabbing the purple lightning bolt into her hand. With a swing of her hand, like a whip, not only did it sweep away the spiritual swords in front of her, it even flew straight towards the black-clothed person. She did not notice it for a moment, as though she did not expect that lightning could be used in such a manner. She was struck head-on, and was swept several meters away. "You dare to launch a sneak attack, I'll whip you." Zhu Yao chased after her, and the lightning whip in her hand crackled loudly. Even Zhu Yao herself did not know why the might of the lightning she casually summoned would actually be so great. The black-clothed person who was so domineering earlier, was actually whipped to the point where she did not even have the strength to retaliate. Putting aside the fact that she was forced to retreat, even her defensive barrier was basically unable to block a single strike. After her chest was struck, with a "tpwa" sound, she puked out a mouthful of blood. Zhu Yao immediately used a binding mystic art to tie her up like a dumpling. At that moment, she felt extremely confident. "You sure have guts. Sending yourself to my doorstep to be whipped, now you know how strong I am, right? You called me queen. Ah pooey." The scene became distorted. "Who are you? Why do you want to kill me?" The black-clothed person did not utter a word, yet, she still stared straight at her. The hatred on her body was so strong that it was about to spill out. Zhu Yao could not figure out when she had attracted such a huge amount of hatred. With a wave of her hand, she removed the disguise mystic art on her face, revealing a delicate and pretty face. "It's you. Mo Xian Xian." Zhu Yao widened her eyes. Why did she not expect it to be her? Though, she was not the least bit vague, and looked as though she wanted to charge forward and bite her. "You slut. Thank you, you bitch." She was startled for a moment, as though she did not understand what a bitch was. Zhu Yao took a deep breath, took a step forward, and squatted next to her. "Is there something wrong with your head? Why aren't you sleeping in the middle of the night? Why did you come to Fluorescent Wind's sect to disturb me? Mo Xian coldly snorted. Turning her head, it was as though she despised Zhu Yao just by looking at her. You already know the answer. I'm asking because I don't know the answer. Do you think everyone is as free as you? Zhu Yao rolled her eyes in return. Just why do you want to kill me? Mo Xian, however, was furious. Slut, first, you seduced my husband, then you chased after me. And now, you won't even let my husband go, and you're still asking me why I want to kill you. Wait a minute. Why do you still think that I was the one who seduced Su Nuyen? Zhu Yao's head ached a little. Didn't I tell you before that I basically didn't know him before? And I never thought of marrying him either. Where's your basic judgment towards life? Humph. Pretentious. Your logic must have been eaten by a dog, right? If you don't have any ulterior motives, why did you send people to kill me along the way? Zhu Yao was startled for a moment. There was really someone chasing after her. Could it be? The hell, that scumbag. Seeing her silence, a hint of something flashed past Mo Xianxian's eyes. If you really have no intentions towards my husband, do you dare to confront him face to face? So be it. This stubborn girl. If she did not personally witness it, she would not know what a scumbag was. Zhu Yao stood up. Just as she was about to step forward and pull her up, she suddenly realized that the ground was glowing with a red light. She reflexively retreated, only to realize that she was surrounded by layers of flames. Those flames were especially unique. There was a tinge of blue within the red, and they were emitting out a threatening heat. Even the surrounding flowers and grasses had withered in an instant. Ha 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 ha. Mo Xian let out a complacent laugh. In an instant, she broke free from the restraints on her body, and leaped several meters away, looking as though her scheme had succeeded. Let's see how you're going to escape this time. The hell, this bitch had long set up a formation here in order to frame her. Zhu Yao looked a little dumbfounded at the flames that had already surrounded her. At that moment, she felt a little regretful. Why did she have to come to this secluded mountain? And she had even unknowingly fallen asleep. If this was Dawnfall Peak, at the very least, her master would be here. With a single glance, she could tell that these flames weren't simple. What mystic art is this? Mo Xian coldly laughed. Why? As the young sect master of Fluorescent Wind sect, don't you recognize your own sect's ultimate art, divine true flames? I don't. She actually shamelessly admitted it. Divine true flames can burn away all divine energy, and is the world's fiercest flame. Before your divine energy is completely exhausted, and before your divine sense scatters, you won't be able to escape. Is that so? But why did she feel that these flames looked a little cute? Even the flames seemed to look a little strange. Hey, it seemed to have formed a heart shape. Zhu Yao could not help but reach out her hand. Humph. Mo Xian coldly glanced at her. These flames can't be extinguished. Obediently accept your death, extinguish. Before she could even finish, she heard a sizzling sound. The flames that were still brimming with life earlier, were completely extinguished with a wave of Zhu Yao's hand. That's impossible. That was divine true flames that could not be extinguished even after coming into contact with water. Zhu Yao looked at her own hand a little blankly. She seemed to have learned some incredible skill, as she was suddenly able to control these flames. Burn! Zhu Yao once again waved her hand. In an instant, the entire mountain peak was once again ignited with a large amount of red and blue flames, burning straight towards Mo Xianxian's direction. Mo Xianxian's expression instantly paled, as she immediately rode on her flying sword and fled. However, the moment she flew up, she suddenly felt an overwhelming pressure pressing down on her. Before she could even react, she directly fell from her flying sword into the sea of flames. Master! Zhu Yao waved at the white figure that suddenly appeared in the sky. He sure came at the right time. What's going on? Yu Yan frowned, as he walked towards his stupid disciple. Nothing much. There's a bitch with a low IQ, and she's always trying to find me to show off. Zhu Yao waved her hand and extinguished the flames in front of her, only to realize that it was completely empty. Where's the bitch? Where's she? She clearly saw her falling down. Could it be that she escaped through the ground? Zhu Yao walked forward and searched around, yet, she could not even find a single strand of hair. She could not even sense Mo Xianxian's presence at all. Yu Yao. A hint of a strange expression flashed past Yu Yan's face. Suddenly, he bent his waist to pick up something from the ground, and handed it over to Zhu Yao. When she clearly saw what it was, Zhu Yao's expression instantly darkened. Chapter 174. Zhu Yao really did not expect that she would see her avatar again so soon. P.S. Ex-avatar. That's right, what her master picked up was that spatial divine jade, Mo Xianxian's biggest cheat. Other than losing half of it, everything else was exactly the same. Returning to Dawnfall Peak, Yu Yan cast an art, and a light shield-like isolation mystic art enveloped the piece of divine jade he picked up. What happened? Yu Yan asked with a sunken voice. I don't know either. Zhu Yao glanced at that piece of jade. I don't know which line Mo Xianxian connected with, but she insists on killing me. Thus, Zhu Yao explained everything regarding the bug this time and the matters regarding the dream to her master. I believe she must have hidden herself in the divine jade's dimensional space. She must have thought that this was a foolproof plan. In a huge fire like that, who would pay attention to such a normal piece of divine jade? Even if they saw it, they wouldn't think that there was another world inside. It was a pity that she had to enter the dimensional space in front of her. Should it be said that she was unlucky or unlucky? Master, is there any way to make her come out? Yu Yan turned around and looked at her strangely. I want to talk to her. Actually, in the end, Mo Xianxian was a pitiful person. She was once a child favored by the heavens, and was revered by the people of the lower realm. After going through many hardships, she finally ascended to the higher realm, and wholeheartedly searched for her husband, to continue their relationship. In the end, the person was still there, but the love was gone. However, back then, during the protection pair ceremony, she had clearly given up on Su Nuyen. Why did her attitude change today? Did someone say something to her? Or was it because she wasn't willing to wake up, which was why she wanted to vent all of her wrongdoings on Zhu Yao? Are you certain? Yu Yan frowned. In his mind, enemies must be eliminated to prevent future troubles. Since that woman dared to make a move, she should be prepared to die. Zhu Yao nodded. Master, you have a way. Yu Yan turned to look at the divine jade on the table. After a while, he said. Back then, when your master was inside, the void-shattering formation was already more than half completed. If I were to activate it outside. Yu Yan quickly cast an art, and slashed towards the void. A ray of light flashed in the air. The space distorted, and a white crack expanded in both directions. He could vaguely see the green mountains and clear waters inside. Suddenly, a blue figure flew out. Just as Zhu Yao was about to stop Mo Xianxian, she heard a furious roar. I'll kill you. It was a male voice. Zhu Yao was startled. The hell, her master didn't tell her that this passage was connected to Thailand, right? How did he change his sex? That figure was dressed in a long blue gown. He was tall and sturdy, and his entire body was filled with well-developed muscles that could not even be covered by his clothes. And that face, Go Dan. Why was it him? How do you know my name? The man was stunned, and even his sword stopped for a moment. He immediately came to his senses. No. I'll chop you up, you bastard who bullied Sister Xian Xian. You. Zhu Yao rolled her eyes. Dodging to the side, she sent a slap towards the back of his head, instantly slamming him onto the ground. Then, she cast a binding mystic art to lock him in place. I haven't seen you for a few months, and your guts have grown bigger, huh? He was not even an earth immortal, yet he dared to stand up for others. Where did his confidence come from? Release me. Go Dan angrily struggled for a few moments. If you have the guts, then fight me fair and square. So she wasn't being sneaky earlier. Zhu Yao instantly felt a slight headache. How could she forget that Go Dan had bound himself to that dimensional space back then as well? So it was very normal for him to be able to enter. And this guy seemed to be a little interested in Imo Xian Xian all this while. But in that precognitive dream, he wasn't mentioned at all. Could it be that the plot had deviated from the start? You despicable, shameless coward. If you have the guts, release me. Go Dan was still scolding. Zhu Yao could not help but kick him. This old lady hasn't even said that you're a traitor, yet you dare to scold me. Why aren't you properly cultivating an advent cloud hole? Why are you in the dimensional space? Where's Mushroom? Humph. Go Dan coldly snorted with a backbone. Don't think that just because you're acting as though you're very familiar with me, I will let you off. I'm telling you, bullying Xian Xian is the same as bullying me. I will not let you off. Ayayaya, it hurts, it hurts, it hurts. My ear, my ear. Zhu Yao twisted his ear, and made various twirls and jumps. Are you going to speak or not? Speak, speak, speak. Go Dan admitted defeat in a second. When Zhu Yao released him, he weakly glanced at Zhu Yao. Let me get up first. Zhu Yao removed the mystic art on his body. Speak, how did you get together with Mo Xian Xian? Go Dan rubbed his own arm, and his eyeballs rolled a few times. He glanced at Zhu Yao from the corner of his eyes, and the corner of his lips pulled into a small arc, looking as though he was about to do something bad. As expected, in the next moment, he pointed outside and loudly said, "Wah, there's a tiger outside." Zhu Yao stood as still as a mountain. It's true. There's a huge tiger outside. Zhu Yao was unmoved. No. I'm not lying to you. Take a look. Zhu Yao continued to look at him. You have to believe. Believe me, I don't lie. Zhu Yao glared at him fiercely. Look, another one is here. Zhu Yao's expression darkened, and she let out a long sigh. You dropped your money. Ah. Go Dan immediately lowered his head to look for his money pouch. Zhu Yao sent a slap over, instantly smacking his head full of bumps. If you want to lie to me, you should first learn your skills properly, alright? What tiger? Even a 3-year-old wouldn't believe such words. At the very least, a UFO. This guy's intelligence should have been thrown away along with Pan Tai when he was born, right? Stop, stop. Don't hit me, don't hit me. Go Dan dodged in a sorry state, and like a rat that was beaten, he once again squatted back onto the ground. Speak, when did you enter the dimensional space? What does it have to do with you? That dimensional space is mine in the first place. As long as I want to, I can enter it any time. Go Dan flew into a rage out of humiliation. Picking up the sword on the ground, he took a step back, and materialized a golden sword intent. That sword intent, however, contained an oppressive aura. Humph, you evil woman who bullies others. Don't think that I'm afraid of you. In this world, other than the great deity who disappeared in the dimensional space back then, I, Godan, have never been afraid of anyone. Die. The great deity who disappeared. Zhu Yao blanked for a moment. Turning to look at a certain master who was purely watching the show, she pointed and said, "Are you talking about him?" Godan subconsciously turned his head, and his eyes suddenly widened. His face looked as though he was struck by lightning. With a tremble of his hand, that golden sword intent which was condensed with all of his divine energy, flew uncontrollably towards Zhu Yao. The great deity from the dimensional space, why would he appear here? This was illogical. Yu Yan frowned. In the next moment, an enormous high deity pressure pressed down towards Godan. The sword intent shattered with a resounding sound, and he was pressed onto the ground with a plop, puking out 3 liters of blood. As expected, this great deity was Godan's eternal nightmare in his arrow life. Yu Yan was very angry. To ambush his disciple in front of him, this person sure had guts. Yu Yan twisted his hand, and just as a bolt of heavenly lightning was about to strike towards Godan, stop. The air once again distorted, and a pink figure flew out. Zhu Yao's eyes shone. Mo Xian finally came out this time, little bitch. Why was it her? And where did she pop out from, hey? Tao Manfeng blocked in front of Godan. Even though the sword in her hand was slightly trembling, she did not take half a step back. Her face looked as though she was facing death with equanimity. The corner of Zhu Yao's lips twitched. Was today a symposium for the past owners of the Jade Pendant dimensional space? The people in the dimensional space were about to form a table of mahjong, you know? Girl Manfeng, hurry and leave. Godan pushed Tao Manfeng, his legs were even beginning to tremble. You can't defeat this great deity. He was really afraid. Thinking back to the first time he entered the dimensional space, he was struck by this great deity to the point of hovering between life and death. That scene was comparable to his childhood trauma, and he did not even dare to recall it. If not for the girl Xian dripping her blood to recognize the dimensional space, and being forcefully pulled into it, he would most probably never discover the secret of the dimensional space in his entire life. Shut up. Tao Manfeng glared at Godan. Not everyone is as stupid as you. Zhu Yao agreed with these words. High deity. Tao Manfeng bowed towards Yu Yan. It has not been long since Godan turned into a spirit, and his actions have offended many people. High deity, please forgive him. Yu Yan did not even spare her a glance, and continued to summon his heavenly lightning. However, from one bolt, it turned into 2. Evidently, he did not forgive her in the slightest. High deity. Tao Manfeng panicked, and had no choice but to light up a defensive barrier to protect herself and Godan. Zhu Yao was dumbfounded from watching this. She was very clear what kind of person Tao Manfeng was, yet, she actually stood up for someone unrelated to her, and the other party was even Godan. This was a little too mystical, wasn't it? She instantly had a feeling that a melodramatic love triangle was about to be played out. Mo Xian versus Godan versus Tao Manfeng. Why did she feel that the scene was so strange? Master, wait a moment. Zhu Yao could only shout out. Yu Yan glanced at her, evidently, he was expressing dissatisfaction towards his disciple's soft-hearted actions. Zhu Yao took 2 steps forward, and pulled down his hand which was forming hand seals. After pondering for a moment, she tightened her grip, and intertwined her fingers with his palm. She chuckled. Give me some face. Yu Yan frowned slightly. Lowering his head, he looked at his disciple's intertwined hands, and a strange sense of satisfaction rose in the depths of his heart. His disciple occasionally disobeying him once, it did not seem to be unacceptable. Hence, he turned his head away, and could not be bothered any more. However, he did not want to let go of his hand. Zhu Yao struggled for a moment, but to no avail. She had no choice but to turn around and block his intertwined fingers. Her master was throwing a tantrum again. Call Mo Xian out, and I will let you two go. No way. Go Dan instantly exploded when he heard this. She's already injured, what else do you want? I have something to say to her. Zhu Yao rolled her eyes at him. Don't worry, I won't kill her. I don't believe you. You're just trying to harm her. The hell, this temper of mine. Zhu Yao waved her hand, and the spatial pendant on the table instantly flew into her hands. If I wanted to kill her, there's no need for me to go through so much trouble. I can simply destroy this jade pendant, there's no need for me to waste my breath on you two. Go Dan still had a look of disbelief. Though, Tao Manfeng nodded. Alright, I will go in and speak to her. After saying that, she raised her head and glanced at Yu Yan behind her. In a flash, her figure entered the spatial pendant. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.